See, because I know we'll get some more people in here. Let me just go in there and do a quick edit.
No doubt.
So hang tight. I won't play no music though.
Got you.
Yeah, because yeah, they just be funny with it, man.
I
They
know.
just be funny, and I just don't want
I
to take
remember the
that.
past shows, bro.
Yeah, I just don't want to take the chance, man. That's all. All right, so let me edit this video real quick. All right, so we are actually live on all three platforms. We figured we do the second part of this show here. We're not gonna play no music because YouTube is just funny with it. So hang tight. I'm gonna do a little editing. I know we'll get some more people on in here. Then we could talk about this even further. So hold on, just give me a minute. Might as well just go live. Hold on. All right. Just doing a couple quick edits. And then we could also let more people know that we're on those other platforms when we do this. But again, I'm not gonna play no music. I ain't gonna take the chance because they be acting funny as fuck. I'll keep that a category as right. All right. All right. I think we are good. Let's come back to the stream yard. Yeah, we got some more people coming in. All right. So we did the first part of the show. So now that we've added the YouTube audience, we're on all three platforms right now. We are on Primordial Chaos on Facebook, 2 words. Primordial Chaos 9, all one word on Instagram, and we are on Primordial Chaos here on YouTube. All right. So this is a show for those just joining on YouTube. We couple years back we did a show. We actually started out on YouTube. To our mistake, it was too hard controlling the copyright stuff. Even though you put stuff like don't own the rights to this music and this and that, Warner Brothers and shit was sending me emails that they were blocking the content because they own the music, and Sony, and just all types of crazy shit. To me, which is a bunch of nonsense because we're actually giving it free publicity. We're not making money off of this, but they look at it like that because if your channel is monetized, which you're not making much money off of it. But anyway, you get the point. So we're not going to really play any music, but you see the title. So just to get everybody up to speed, get everybody a quick overview. We're talking about some of the elementals of hip hop. We're talking, so a little different from the normal YouTube show I would do. But me and Taja just figured, let's bring this over to YouTube. Since we're kind of just building on this tonight, we're not really playing any music. We can kind of bring the rest of the audience in. And we are going through some of these key elementals. We were talking about the business side of things and the culture of the roots of the culture of the music. And something I want to reiterate that we were talking about earlier that's very important, in my opinion. How a lot of us were taught when we were younger that this was given to us as a gift to speed up our intellect, because a lot of those core elements of hip hop that on the main surface has been lost. We were talking about, yes, the b-boy and the DJ and breakdancing, the art of the DJ, as we were saying not too long ago, has almost been completely lost because the new modern era DJ, I call him the laptop DJ. Uh, you know, Look, if you got computer skills, you could DJ. Okay. It's not the same as a true DJ who could take two vinyl records and make a song out of it, literally. Don't confuse that DJ for the DJ you seeing today that's just hitting some buttons, right? And all they do on the laptop, they got a mass playlist and they can just download things into their mix and hit buttons and it sounds. It's the technology that's doing the work. It's not the skill no more. I mean, you had back then the Technique turntables. Yeah, you had a DJ had 2 Techniques and a mixer and some vinyl, and that was it. He went to work. That's basically what they did. So we've been talking about all those things. We were talking about. We just left off with the business side, how owning the catalog of a lot of this music, and how some artists like De La Soul held out and recently just made their catalog available. So we're going through the first overstanding of Real Hip Hop and the Gospel of Hip Hop by KRS-One, because we're focusing and what the show is designed for those that may not have caught it on the Primordial Chaos 9 Instagram page or the Primordial Chaos Facebook page. I do put the notifications out. The purpose of the show is to get into the more cultural and spiritual aspect of the music, as opposed to just the entertainment aspect of it. All right. So where we left off at in the first overstanding of the gospel of hip hop, real hip hop, we left off in the fourth paragraph on page 58. A real hip hopper believes, and he breaks down the word in 2 words, be and lives, right? So you play on words there. Hip hop, for it is wise for a real chef to believe in the reality of cooking, and a real doctor to believe in and live from the reality of medicine, and a real Christian to believe and live in Christ as examples. Therefore, it is not equally wise for real hip hoppers to believe and live in hip hop. On the other hand, why participate in something that you really do not fully believe in or believe in, right? And we were talking about earlier, and he says the same thing like we say about this path, the path of the occult or the left-hand path. It's not just about reading about, right? It's about living it, right? You're not trying to read about this or you're not trying to read about your spiritual path. You are, right, a manifestation or a coming of your spiritual path, okay? So there's a difference. And those that are rooted, now you could take this approach. I'm not just going to say to the genre of hip hop music, because I know a lot of dudes that when it comes to the genre of rock music, when you look at some of those dudes, whether you agree with it or not, but they live, eat, breathe, and sleep the culture, right? I mean, let's be honest. We put some people in a box sometimes and we stereotype them, right? We were talking about earlier before we kind of came on the YouTube, when we were just on the Instagram and the Facebook. We talked about this earlier where we were saying, remember back then you lived, eat, dressed, and slept hip hop, right? You could be honest. You could look at somebody as you were out and about just by the way they were dressed in your mind, whether you were right or wrong, you would automatically identify them, oh, they're a hip hop head, because the sneakers they were wearing, the clothes they were wearing, or the way they carried themselves. Well, you could do that with a lot of dudes that listen to hard rock or metal or classic rock, because back then we would identify them too because they were wearing the t-shirts, right? They dressed a certain way, right? The way their hair was styled. Same thing with hip hop. So my whole point, simply to say, is what KRS is basically saying here. It's about living, eating, breathing, and you are the music, right? You're not following the music. You're not just reading about the music. You're not studying. And to me, that's a testament of, that's how we grew up on it, right? It's a little different. It wasn't just a fad or a trend to us. Now, we kept up with the different trends, right? Because, hip hop had its own fads. You remember Cross Colors, right? Remember that shit? Call Can I, right?
Right.
Even that's a whole nother topic, how the fashion game got infiltrated, right? And there's a lot of artists that, and I'm glad, rightfully so, that speak out, like Tommy Hilfiger. He had said some disrespectful shit about a lot of hip hop artists. He said he don't care if they wear their shit or not, that his shit, quote unquote, wasn't geared for hip hop heads, and hip hop
Same with Timberland.
Timberland said the same shit.
But if I could just add to something you said, like, Kara said, hip hop is a culture, rap is a genre, and you exactly what you touched on with like rock is a culture. You know what I mean? Hard rock or metal or whatever is a genre. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, it, like you said, it's a way of life. It's in the way that you speak. It's in the way that you think. It's in the way that you see the world. It's in the way that you
100%.
dress. You know what I'm saying? So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And look how much money hip hop has made. A lot of these major corporations and, you know, clothing lines, sneaker lines. You know, how much money has Nike, Adidas, and other sneakers made off of the culture, right? I mean, shit, Run DMC made a song, My Adidas, back in the day. And the whole song was rapping about the sneaker. You understand? I mean, list goes on and on. We can get into sports, we can get into music, but a lot of these big companies have profited off of this. But I mean, that's a whole nother topic, right? Uh, what happened? I think we lost Taja. I'll continue till we get him back in. We lost. You got disconnected, Taja. I don't know if you're listening. You have to come back in, bro. All right, let's continue where we left off. Oh, there it is, back. Oh, you back. I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what happened either. Yeah, I'm here. I never left. At least I don't
That's just
think I did.
crazy.
It just got
You
quiet.
went off the screen, though.
Okay.
All right. Real relates to fixed or immovable things like land. When hip hop is real to you, when it is fixed and immovable from your being, you are practicing real hip hop. When something is real, it is considered to be genuine and slash or authentic. It is what it is what it proposes to be. And I think a lot of us can testify to, as we got exposed to hip hop back then, we've never been the same. You have to be honest with yourself. We have never been the same. I mean, you could be a young head, or you could be somebody like myself in their 50s, where it still shapes and molds and affects you to this very day, right? It's part of your life. I mean, there's not a day or much time that goes by that I'm not listening to it. If I'm in the gym, in the car, whatever, it's there. I mean, I catch shit from this guy right here. Sometimes this guy's sitting right here, cracking on my music. Sometimes, yeah, look at him looking up in the sky, huh? What do you say about jazz music in the car? Sometimes you like some of it, but some of it, what? What do you say? Huh? Oh, okay. I mean, he's only 9 years old, but maybe that changed when he gets older. But yeah, it's just been a fabric or a part of your life now. And I think the beauty about how KRS-One presents this, he really goes deep on an emotional, mental, and a spiritual level. He's bringing an essence of this out, again, that's not really talked about, in my opinion. All right. It is what it proposes to be. It is not imaginary. It is actually existing and occurring to our physical senses. The term real hip hop relates to the fixed conditions and genuine nature of hip hop as it appears to our physical senses today. Breaking, MCing, graffiti art, and DJing, beatboxing, street fashion, street language, street knowledge, and street, business acumen, or being in I can never say that word right, and entrepreneurism, right, are all fixed conditions of hip hop. Now look at all of those things right there that true hip hop contained, right? Breaking, MCing, and again, there's a difference between being an MC and a rapper. An MC, or master of ceremony, controls the crowd, right? That's what an MC did back in the day. That's why he was called an MC, because he had the crowd's attention, right? He was able to, whether he was DJing, keeping a party going, rhyming, he had the ability to captivate, to entertain the crowd. The crowd had his full attention. You have many rappers, but you have very few MCs that exist. Okay. And that kind of was what me and Taj were talking about earlier. There's a difference between rapping or rap music and hip hop or MCing, right? Real lyricists are MCs. There's many rappers. Shit. I know many little kids that can rap. What you huffing and puffing over there? Huh? Got something to say? Something you want to add on this, young man? See you sitting here. I ain't got nothing to say now. Anyway.
Keep your video
But you get the point. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that, but I think just those things mentioned in that second paragraph is amazing. I mean, look at all those things that were created, right? And look at all those elements, right?
And on this path, we talk about alchemy, right? That's all of those things. That's all of those things.
Correct. 100%. It's all of those things, man. These elements are permanent and immovable from the existence of hip hop. These elements are real hip hop, and those who promote and preserve these elements promote and preserve real hip hop. When these elements are not present in one's self-expression, one is not doing or being real hip hop. And this is what I mean when I say the culture has been infiltrated, because they've stripped a lot of those elements away. DJing, again, I have to go back to that. Don't compare the modern day DJ to the real DJ back then. A real talented DJ, all he had was 2 vinyl records, 2 Technique turntables, and maybe a mixer. And he created magic with it, literally. Now you got your modern day laptop, gadget, high-tech electrical DJ who can just hit some buttons, right? I mean, back then we was using shit like M1 Korgs, keyboards, the 808, the SP1200, right? Those were the top machines that were being used back then for production. I mean, still incorporated today to a degree, but now with all these mix boards, and I mean, what did it start out with? Like 4, 8, 12, and then 24. What is it up to now, track wise? I mean, it goes to like
it's unlimited. It's unlimited.
It's unlimited, right?
If you're working off a computer, it's unlimited.
It's unlimited. What did we start out with back then? Though we were doing what? How many tracks?
It was a 4-track. It was a 4-track.
That shit just blows my mind just to think about that.
It was a 4-track. Yes, that's
it
nuts.
blows my mind to think about that, man. Yeah. So it's changed. It's definitely changed. It's a different era, different time frame, different time period, the whole 9. All right. The true hip hop scholar / apprentice is studying to become hip hop, not just to observe hip hop. How can anyone claim any authentic scholarship on something that they themselves are not equally and cannot actually do? Now, this is why I think we as quote unquote the older heads have a valid point. I think a lot of the newer generation is not educated on. I'm not saying you got to be a walking encyclopedia, but it is fascinating, and not in a positive way, how many of these younger generation are not educated to the history and the culture of the music. And I think just like anything else, not just hip hop, it could be any genre of music. If your genre is rock music, classical music, whatever it is, you should be at least very educated to the origins of what you're listening to. But when it comes to, the music, hip hop today, there's a lot. I mean, some of them don't even know some of the pioneer artists. I mean, I'm not saying all. There are, and then again, don't get me wrong, on the flip side, there are a very small, limited group of the younger heads that are very educated to it. But I think as a whole, anything you do that you participate in, etc., just like what we do on the left-hand path of the occult, you should be educated to it. And I think that lacks. And I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong or your thoughts on this. I think that's probably why there's that disconnect between old heads and newer heads, in my opinion. Right? I don't know your thoughts on that.
I think I have to agree. So I told I spoke about my son earlier. He's 21 and he has that that foundation that I put in him just since he was a baby, listening to what I was listening to, coming up, and then me giving him explanations on stuff. But it gave him a broader appreciation for hip hop as a whole. And although he does still listen to, XXX is one of his favorite artists, he still listens to the music now, but he has a deeper appreciation. And so I kind of liken that to, if you want to be a classical, artist in the form of visual art as far as painting, right? You can just you can just paint, but it's going to make you better to educate yourself on techniques that were developed hundreds of years ago or even decades ago. That's going to make you a better artist. And so yeah, you have that lack of, you could pick up you could pick up a brush, and you could pick up a canvas, and you could paint, and you're going to have colors going on there, and it may be something that people could appreciate. Maybe you have a natural talent in making, and reproducing something that you see in front of you, maybe. But I think, like you're saying, to your point, if you look at most of these artists, it was based off of, I want to be famous, I want to be rich, I can do what they're doing based on what these companies are putting out as hip hop or quote unquote rap music, and I can do that. And they do. And yeah, there's that is the disconnect between the younger and the older generations, because they don't have that appreciation, most of them, for the foundation of where this came from and the development of it. And you're not going to know as a younger person. But if you took the time to, and this is the whole basis of the show, is if you take the time to educate yourself and learn about this stuff and research, where it comes from, and just have an appreciation for it. Even if you don't love Tribe Called Quest, or you don't love Slick Rick, or you don't love PE, what I'm saying? You have an appreciation for where it came from and where it developed from. And that's even going to help you as an artist to develop what you're doing, because now you have a toolbox and a knowledge base that you're pulling from. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, it's crazy how one thing we were talking about before, something I want to revisit and reiterate. When we were talking about before, if you remember in the early days, there was a lot of, like we were saying earlier, a lot of R&B artists back in the early 80s were criticizing the genre. Oh, it ain't going to last, this and that. Look how hip hop to this very day has influenced R&B. Outside of the fact, shortly after that, like we said, there was a rapper doing a cameo on every R&B artist album. To this day, same thing. But look how R&B has changed because of it. What do I mean by that?
Right.
There's a good and bad aspect of it. Every R&B artist wants to be a thug, right? Think about 90s and early 2000 R&B with probably, as we got out of the early 2000s, the real, true R&B has kind of evaporated, because a lot of these quote unquote R&B artists, to me, come off a little confusing, because a lot of them want to be thugs and they don't know if they want to sing or they want to rap, or they want to rap or they want to sing. And it's a little confusion, right? So even in that, when we're talking about the change and the effect it's had across the board, it's also transitioned into the genre, of R&B. So look, these elementals to me, and then the business side of it that we were talking about right before we started streaming live here on YouTube is critical, right? That can't be negated. But I think that's one thing I will say has changed and uptrended in a positive way, regardless, even for the newer artists, because the digital platform, and now with YouTube, a lot of artists have the ability to control their music, and they're profiting off it a lot more. And this is why you might say to yourself, well, how are some of these artists, like some of these motherfuckers I ain't ever even heard of, Little Boo Boo, Little Doo Doo, and Little Bobo, and everybody's little this and little that. They making money hand over fist because they got a lot of control over their music, because of digital platforms, the internet, YouTube. I mean, if you look on YouTube, some of these dudes are getting millions in the hit area, right? Yeah. So you think about back in the day, artists like Kane or Rakim or Public Enemy. If you imagine if they had access to the same platforms, I mean, shit, think about it. I mean, so I think that has been an upside, where a lot of artists now staying independent because they can control the creative content that they're putting out. Where back then you had to rely on labels to put your shit out. you remember back then we used to walk, like we used to go to 4th and Broadway, Profile Records, Def Jam. We used to walk into the offices and shop our demo tapes.
You could
We
do
used
that
to go
back
to
then.
there was a place in Manhattan called RPBC. I mentioned this on a show a while back, a couple of years ago. It was called the Record Pool Business Center, right? And it was in Midtown Manhattan, and it had these little things on Friday and Saturday nights where you can bring your demo and you could perform live, and there was all, you know, quote unquote record industry people there. I mean, that's the way we shopped our music back in the day. You don't need to do that no more, right? You can do it yourself and put your stuff out there, right? So I think that has changed tremendously. And I think that's the biggest upside, where regardless, you know, whether it's whoever it is, Little Boo Boo, Little whatever Choo Choo, and Little Gambino and Little Boo Boo, whatever the fuck they are, I will give them credit. They are at least controlling the business side of it, and they're getting paid, and you got to respect the hustle. Right?
And they were born at the right time. You know, like you just alluded to, like if we had that back then, you know, man, and so many other artists that I've seen over the years that just I was like, I used to boggle my mind how these people don't have deals. You know, like just nuts. And had that technology been around back then, oh my God, I mean, that whole era of, and again, not to take nothing away from them, but that whole era of the Tone Locks and the young MCs and stuff like that would have never even happened. It would have never even been. I don't think it would have even been a blip on the radar.
No, I agree. I mean, there's so many. I mean, man. I mean, look, I'm sure. Like I said, if you go through the evolution of a lot of genres, you'll see some similarities. Don't get me wrong. But remember, what's unique to this genre is this actually manifested at a time we were living. We lived it. So it's a little different. Like for our generation and moving forward, all these other genres, quote unquote, so-called already existed, right? We know there's some history there, good and bad, but when we were born, blues existed already, right? R&B already existed. Rock and roll already existed, right? But we were here and we witnessed the birth of hip hop. So it's a little bit different, right? So we were there from the very beginning and we're still here to the present moment. So we're seeing, you know, how it's changed and evolved, good and bad.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, and the beauty of that is, you know, just when we were talking about, you know, the evolution of hip hop, just it was birthed out of all those previous genres. It was birthed out of everything that came before it. You know, you James Brown, I think Mecca made a comment about funk music. You know, like that whole genre. Basically, I mean, there was some New York and East Coast groups that adopted some stuff from there, but most of that's where you got Bootsy Collins and Funkadelic there in the West Coast, and that whole movement was they just gravitated towards that stuff, you know. So we kind of like were able to resurrect these dying and dead genres of music and turn them into something again, transmuted into something new, you know, and vibrant and that was attracting the youth at the time and even till today. And it is just a testament again to the creativity of, you know, us as a collective, you know, being able to create something out of nothing, you know, something that was dead and bring it into a different form. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. And but also look, you know, hip hop is the only genre that infuses all genres in it.
Exactly.
Right? Say what you want about sampling and production, but you can hear the elements of rock, you can hear the elements of jazz, and there's two things I want to talk about. I'll get to that in a second. But there's infusions of multiple genres in the production of the music alone. Like I say, jazz, rock, rhythm and blues, classical music.
Right.
You name it. It's there. It's depending on, and one thing I always knew as an artist, like for an example, you remember Diggable Planets. If you listen to Diggable Planets, and you could see all the elements of what they were influenced by. You could see this with a lot of artists. artists, right?
Right.
Just by what they sampled and the type of production of their music. So I think also it shed light on a lot of genres. And obviously you brought up James Brown, and we know I'm not sure if that still exists to this day, but at one point he was the top most sampled artist, period. And the funky drum has been sampled, I don't know how many times. It's ridiculous. Even other hooks, bass lines. But just the production of it alone has shed light on a bunch of other genres. Now, there was two, since we're talking about genres in the music, but if you're tired, what's going on? You all right? I'm supposed to leave. You remember the Jazzmatazz series that Gangstar put out?
Yes.
If you like an infusion of jazz and hip hop, if you guys have never heard that, I would highly encourage you. He put out 2 volumes of it called Jazzmatazz, and man, you talk about some smooth butter production on there. That to me was a classic infusion of jazz and hip hop on a whole nother level, in my opinion. And then you remember we talked about on an older show a while back, not here on YouTube, on it was on I believe Instagram. Remember the short-lived horrorcore?
Yeah.
They tried.
Yeah.
I mean, people forget about that, but people forget about Flatliners. Be careful dragging that, bud. Still dragging it though. Can't do anything. People forget about Flatliners, which, believe it or not, I think I mentioned a while back, they still around making music, which most people, it got a little bit bizarre in my opinion. I mean, I understand the concept. I'm a little confused on how they're trying to promote it. But anyway, people forget in the early to mid 90s, there was the horrorcore movement that didn't go over too well. That technically would be the first infusion of, the occult or the darker path into the elements of the music. Now, Gravediggers was able to shift and still have some success with their second album, 3 Feet High. I'm sorry, the second album. I can't remember the full title of it. The first album was when they were kind of on that Flatliner stuff, because that first album came out at the same time. It was about 94, I think it was, or 95. But that was a short-lived movement. Again, I'm bringing that up because of what we were talking about earlier, how it's crossed and influenced other aspects in other genres, right? The history is there, okay? And we need to understand, I think, as I was saying earlier, that's where the disconnect comes from, in my opinion, the younger generation and the older generation, because of lack of understanding of the history of the culture and the music. All right. And again, I gotta say this, but be careful how I say it. What we're seeing today is not what it is, unfortunately. Artists wearing skirts and makeup and women's clothing and all this other stuff. And I'm not saying that in a discriminatory sexual way. But again, I'm going to stand firm on everybody has a right to their thoughts and opinions. And it's not hating on anybody, but I got to call it for what it is. Okay. That's just not what the music is. It's just not what the culture is. The problem with it is because generations that come later are going to see what's here now. And if we don't preserve and educate on what it originally was, then we lose that. That's my point. Okay. Because 20, 30 years from now, if, like you were saying earlier, Taja, if this stuff is not kept alive, the individual that gets introduced to this genre 20, 30 years down from the road, they're going to think it's about wearing women's clothing, carrying pocketbooks, wearing lipstick, wearing, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's just not what it is. I'm sorry. I don't want nobody to take offense to it. I'm not trying to offend nobody. I'm not trying to step on nobody's toes, but I'm going to have to call it for what it is. And again, as I said earlier, before we were here on YouTube, I totally understand not everybody's going to agree with me, and I get that. And we can agree to disagree as mature adults, but I have to call it for what it is, right? So, anything else you want to add on that before we move on?
Nah, I mean, just to back up what you said, it's just a conversation, man. That's all.
Yeah, it's just a conversation. Exactly. And when we look into when we're talking about some of the key elements, right? He mentions in there fashion, right? That's why I'm bringing up. I get it, because you could have the other person that has the perspective. Well, times change, right? Things change. I get it, but I can tell you this: look at a lot of other genres, how they have stayed more true to their roots. But why is it hip hop, when it comes to the fashion part, has gone a whole nother fucking route? Like, you can look at the genre of rock and roll. They're pretty true to the cause, right? You can look. Well, I think R&B is influenced by hip hop now, so R&B and hip hop are so closely knit together now. When you look at the artists, so there's a lot. Vice versa, one's affecting the other, and the other's affecting, vice versa the other. But that's changed, right? And again, we have to be educated on what it used to be. I want to make this clear. I'm not saying everybody needs to throw on baggy ass jeans again and shirts 3-4 times the size, because everything does serve a purpose and a time frame. I get that, but things can change, but remain true to the roots is what I'm trying to say, right? Change is inevitable, right? But yes, we can change, because nothing's gonna ever stay the same. But we gotta stay true to the roots, right? I think I'm gonna go through another. Where was it? There was something else I wanted to run through in here. Hold on. Go to the table of contents. Yeah, in the fourth overstanding in the gospel of hip hop, he talks about health, love, awareness, and wealth. Right. This is important. Right. It's important on our path and what we do. Right. If it's not involving health, love, awareness, and wealth, right, which is not really talked about, in my opinion, enough in a lot of spiritual systems, right? So let's go to the section on health on page, I think it's on page 206. Let's run there real quick. Now, let's shift it a little bit, because back then we can go to some of the origins, and if you want to throw some in there, Tasha, throw some in. I remember back in the day, groups like the Native Tongue Family, which was the Jungle Brothers. You had Tribe. You had a lot of artists that were educating us when it came to health, right? If you're not familiar with the Jungle Brothers, done by the Forces of Nature, if you never heard that album, go listen to that album. They're dropping, it's a classic. They're dropping a lot of jewels on there. So he talks about on page 206. Let's just go through a couple. Health. Health is a state of being at peace in one's mind and body. It is a state of being well or whole. For hip hop, health is the state of total physical. Now, notice he doesn't just include health in connection to the physical. It's a total state of physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. Why I wanted to point this out, because what do I always talk about on the path of the occult? You must be in sound mind, body, and spirit, right? It's the same thing. In order to receive the benefits of the path, you can't receive the full benefits, and you can't fully put things into context if the mind, the body, and the spirit are not healthy. A healthy hip hopper has a positive attitude about life itself and is at peace with the state of his physical body or her physical body, as well as the mind, right? A healthy hip hopper, even when sick, is undefeated. In fact, being healthy does not mean freedom from sickness. It means continuous healing. See that? And what we do when we're on the path of the occult, regardless of what you want to call it, the healing process to me, is just another term for the constant evolution and change of your growth, right? So healing doesn't always mean directly in relation from a physical sickness, right? There's a deep spiritual breakdown and understanding to what real healing is, right? So we must keep that in mind. Okay. For we all are healing, excuse me. Oh, my bad. Every day, right now, as you read or hear this instrument, you are healing. So information can heal you, right? When I like to use a term called, there's a term we used to use years ago called you get DNA explosions when you're exposed to certain information. DNA explosions is when you get those goosebumps all over your body, or you get that, oh shit, like that aha moment, right? Those are all examples of when you have a DNA explosion, when something in that moment of time hits you so hard that you're so locked into the moment, and that's when real truth manifests for you as a reality, right? So hearing correct information is a form of healing, right? And shit, it's what we do. It's part of the process of what we do on this path. Think about when you came from a previous spiritual system or path over to the occult, right? Think about those first stages of awakening, how you felt, how it affected you, right? It was healing at its highest level, right? So we could take this here and we can apply that again across the board. Okay. All right, let's continue. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add on that, Taja.
Yeah, I mean, just another example of healing that just came to mind as far as you know, talking about this path. Vibration is a big thing, and you can. I know I have done it. Shit. I mean, you can do it not just with hip hop, but I mean, just I've done it mostly with hip hop, and depending on what state of mind I'm in, going into or dealing with a certain situation, I gravitate towards certain songs or certain artists to put me in a certain vibration mentally and spiritually to push me or give me some kind of grounding in undertaking certain tasks and certain things. And I know that that's for myself, and also when I've talked to other people, just friends or what have you. Yeah, I had to listen to, I don't know, PE coming into work today just because so I could deal with this situation I got to deal with for the next 9 hours or what have you. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's another part of it.
Right. Right. And but keep in mind, that's when I say music is a powerful force, because it's at the very core of the fabric of your makeup and your existence. And that's why, like, you, for those that have been on a channel or in the Patreon classes, we use music as a form, of ritual, because it's also the soundtrack to our life. Let's just be honest. Music is the soundtrack to your life, because you connect to the vibration and the frequency of the music. Because I'm saying that because of what you just said, using the example of listening to PE on the way in, because there's something in your DNA that even when you were exposed to PE years ago, activated a certain aspect of you that you could still pull from that today, right? In this present moment. It's funny because you could do that with all genres, because today, for whatever reason, like, the spirit will speak to me. And so it's been R&B, smashing music. Keith Sweat's second album, the whole thing played out in my head, and I had to crank that whole thing today for reasons. But across the board, we connect. It awakens a certain aspect of your DNA, because remember, it's ingrained there, right? Music does that. We've used it as a tool for time travel, ritual work, healing, and for those that are in the shadow work classes, they've been doing what we call a music playlist, or a soundtrack of their life, and they've created, a history of it that they can go as far back they can remember as a child, and you can make it. It doesn't matter how you do it. But I encourage them, whether you're exercising in the car or just chilling at the house, to just reflect, because it's the history of your life. And when you tap into it, you're going to start connecting to the moments that music is connected to and that impacted your life. It just, what does that? Sound and vibration and frequency, right? Immediately the sound, the vibration, and the frequency of it tune you in to the exact moment it activated a certain part of your DNA. Okay. And that's the spiritual power of music. Even when you get into deeper aspects of harmonics, tachyon frequencies, how they say harmonics and tachyon frequencies are the glue and the fabric that keep, quote unquote, is a little deeper than that, the universe intact, right? There's power behind it, right? And I think when we can recollect, right, this is why even when you reflect, there's certain sounds and pitches that resonate with us. Like, I like deep bass lines. There's something about a deep bass line and a hard hitting snare that just moves me, right? When we look at, if we really get intricate and detailed with instruments and sound and production, I just like deep bass lines and hard hitting snares and things of that nature. There's certain pitches and sounds that bother me that I don't like. High pitched sounds don't really tend to resonate with me too well, only in certain moments. But I'm just saying, when we really tackle the spiritual essential side of it, it opens up a whole nother door. But I think we all can look back at hip hop tracks, just whether it was the break, whether it was the beat, there's something about it that resonated with us, right? I'm sure all of us here could pop off a gang of songs. And if we really probed it deeper, there's a reason why, because it touched us on a very deep internal level, right? What makes you want to play a track over and over again? Think about that shit for a minute, right? Ask yourself that. Right? We're used to, oh man, that shit is bang. Oh man, that shit is slamming. Oh, but it's deeper than that. There's something in the frequency and the sound and the tone and the vibration of it that is making us want to keep hitting that, replay button. Right? Think about that.
And from an artist perspective, I'm gonna say that same applies. When you hear a beat, you hear a track, there's something that ignites in you that says, it just gives you that spark, that creative spark to say, I can do something with this. You know what I'm saying? Is that I think it's the same thing as when you hear a finished song. It's like you just gravitate towards it. It's like your head automatically nods. It's you feel it in your cells, and you just want, it's physically doing something to you, it's spiritually doing something to you, it's emotionally doing something to you. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like sex. It's like there's no feeling in the world like that.
Yes, 100%. And that's critical. That's key. All right. So I think what we'll do now is let's go to the chat, look at some of the comments, maybe questions or something you guys want to add. Throw it in the chat. We'll put it out there. Let's just see what you guys are talking about in here, and we'll finish with that. Let's see what we got in here. I'm gonna start at the top. All right. So yeah, we were talking about earlier, and we weren't on YouTube then. We were talking about when hip hop made its official crossover, and we were talking about how Run DMC is pretty much responsible for the major transition or crossover. And there's good and bad to that, right? We were talking about, the Raising Hell album that came out in 1986. That coupled with License to Ill by the Beastie Boys was probably the two top albums at that time in '86. But there was a hit. If you remember the real hit though that year, you're gonna remember this. Audio 2 Top Billin'. That was the hit. They were playing that shit everywhere. But Audio 2, obviously, which by the way, that's MC Light's cousin, and that's pretty much how MC Light got put on. But Top Billin' was, I think, if you look at chart-wise, top song, that was the top single of 1986 by Audio 2. But we were talking about what opened the door to rap crossing over into like pop culture, mainstream. And there was good and bad to that. Run DMC, in my opinion, is probably the one attributed. I'm talking about to get that first major success or breakthrough. But we were talking about it did hurt them, in my opinion, because they struggled a few years after that to get their credibility back. Because back then, during them times, you know, you were considered soft if you kind of were considered mainstream or commercial. It's not like it is now where everything is just promoted together. You got to remember, that's not how it was back then. So it was a different era and period. So we were talking about what was the first video that was put into rotation of rap music on MTV, not MTV Raps, MTV Raps. And it was, Mandy had looked it up. It was actually Rockbox, 1984. And Run DMC is also in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So they're one of the first artists to cross over. Now, I never knew how that worked, Taja. I mean, how do you put, I don't know how that works. I always had questions about that. But it's neither here nor there. But yes, we were talking about how those doors opened and also some of the difficulties that came with it. All right. So that was what that comment was in reference to. What else we got here? Yeah, we're not going to play no music here. Only because we did. You're in here twice now, bro. Can you hear me? I don't know what's happening. Tasha, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I was trying to get to the chat. I don't know what the hell happened.
Nah, no worries.
All right.
I'm just going through the questions and the comments. We're going to finish up with that.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, like I said, we ain't going to play no music because what I mentioned earlier.
Cool.
Mika earlier said, not sure if she's still here, but Mika said earlier, can you discuss how funk played its role in hip hop? Oh, it still does. Now, I will say in the early 90s, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, if you remember, on a lot of their music that came out in the 90s, they were sampling George Clinton and the Parliament. In my opinion, that was, I mean, it's across the board. You can hit De La Soul if you listen to some of their samples, but I think a lot of West Coast artists were sampling a lot of funk music, more so than East Coast artists. East Coast artists did, but the way they blended it, and Taja, your thoughts on this from producing music. But I think East Coast artists blended the hooks a little different, where it was more, I don't want to say it was hidden because you could hear the elements of it. I think a lot of West Coast artists use longer riffs or hooks or samples of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. East Coast was more background, you know. It wasn't out front as your basis for. So it's kind of like equivalent to, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, the way Puffy put together songs. It was like, you know, I'll take this record and that's the primary, that sample is the primary part of this whole song. And I think that's kind of how West Coast did it with you know, Parliament and Bootsy and stuff like that. Whereas the East Coast kind of made it a element of the production.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. 100%. But still to this day, I mean, funk has influenced the production of the music, just as blues music has, just as classic R&B. And look, I remember back in the day when we were putting tracks together, you could find a lot of good bass lines, drum samples, in classic rock music, right?
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, look at Billy Squires' Big Beat. How many people sample Big Beat, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Run DMC fucking used it. I mean, it's one of their classics. I mean, it's been used multiple times. So I think a good producer has an ear and listens to all music, right? You've got to have an ear, because look, there's a lot. The Eagles, there was a track we put together years ago that used the opening. The Eagles have a lot. The rock group, the Eagles have a lot of good bass lines, riffs, and samples. you got to have a good ear for that. So I think, again, funk is another genre. We were talking about a lot of different genres that hip hop has influenced and given more light upon. So funk definitely is in that category. That's a good point. Good comment,
For sure.
Mika.
For sure.
Okay. What else we got? All right. Yeah, we were talking about. I see Mama Muerte's comment here. We were talking about some influential hip hop clothing lines from back in the day. We forgot about FUBU, right? Remember FUBU?
Yeah.
So, you had FUBU, you had Call Kanai, you had Cross Colors. I know we're missing something else. I mean, there was Feli, Troop.
Feli, Starter.
There was some theories behind Feli and Troop. British, remember
British
BKs?
Knights. Yeah.
People started wearing them in New York when Hammer started promoting them. BKs was the shit.
Oh man!
In the early to mid 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen. If you had a fresh pair of BKs on, you mentioned the raccoon hat, the gazelles and the sheepskin with a pair of straight-legged Lees with the crease, and the BKs. Oh man, you were clean, boy.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell, and then you had the nameplate. And the 2-3 finger ring. Oh, forget it, man. He was clean.
And the name belt.
Oh, the name belt. Oh, see that? Look. Yo, if you went the extra length with the name belt, oh, you was man. You was the shit. Yeah, I can't remember. I know I had the ring of the 3-fingered ring with the name. I had one of those. I had the nameplate. Oh man, I can't remember if I had the belt. Probably didn't. If I can't remember, I should remember that.
I know I did.
You had the belt. Oh, you went all out. Oh
yeah,
shit.
Yeah.
You had the belt. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I mean, back then you had a lot of lines that were synonymous, yes, with the culture. Some are still around today, have evolved, but
true.
Yeah.
I remember watching B Street and seeing the one of the crews, the couple of the boys had sheepskins on with graffiti on the arms or the front of the back. Yo, when I got my sheepskin done, people were clowning me for that, and I'm like, yo. But then there was other people like, yo, that's hot. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking hot. Yo, dude.
What about when you went to the we had the Coliseum in Jamaica, Queens, it's what you would call back then, like they have today. It's Coliseum's still there, like a big indoor flea market.
Yeah.
Remember, you used to go to the airbrush spots on the inside, get your shirts.
Yep.
Yeah, man. It was just, oh man, checkerboard laces. You get your kicks laced up. I mean, there was so much, that we can bring up. And when we look back then at how it's evolved and changed now, but man, it was nothing like you go back to them early 80s and then you look how that transitioned and it went to the super baggy stuff. Because you got to remember, I just want to be clear, this wasn't skinny jeans, but you got to remember there was a time before people wearing a lot of the slim stuff they wear now. We were wearing straight-legged Lees back then.
Straight-legged Lees, yeah. Yep.
Before the baggy stuff was in the early 80s. Remember that?
Yep. The Lees with the creases in the front.
The creases, yeah. Remember the pinstripe Lees?
Yeah, the pinstripes, yep.
Now look, I want to be clear. We weren't wearing nut huggers though. Okay, we weren't wearing this tight
Not
shit
at all. Not at all.
That you could barely pull up, but it was form fitting.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what I'm saying. We was doing that back then, but then obviously when you got into the late 80s, going into the 90s, the baggy movement came in hardcore, right?
Right.
Then the baggy jeans and that could have got a little eccentric. I'm not gonna lie, I did the whole baggy thing, but I stayed within reason. No, I wasn't one of them dudes. I never really was feeling the pants hanging off the ass. That just wasn't me.
Nah, not at all.
Wasn't me. I just always thought it was ignorant. Just wasn't me. I mean, hey, look, man, a lot of my friends did it. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people I know did it, but that just wasn't me, man. It was just something about it that never sat right with me. I always thought it projected a negative image. So, and I used to even encourage my boys not to do it. Yeah, but some dudes, they just, I guess it made them feel like they were hard rocks. Remember that? He's a hard rock. Only people remember that term. Like, oh, he's a hard rock.
But growing up in the city though, truthfully, like you got your pants hanging down and you got to run.
Right.
What
How you
what are
gonna
you
get
doing?
away? Right.
What are you doing?
Right. I mean, just I don't know. I mean, some dudes, you're right. They couldn't even. I mean, shit, run. Let alone they couldn't even walk properly.
Yeah, exactly,
You know,
exactly.
let alone run.
Right,
Nah, but I mean, it was a lot of the like, we used to call them hard rocks. Like a lot of dudes that
right,
were
right.
eccentric with it, they were hard
Yeah,
rock, right? They
of
just
course.
everything. They was just straight. You talk about this, what they calling thug, and then that was a different level of thug back then. You know, it was with the drug dealers. You know, they remember the big leather jackets they wear with their name on the back. You know, Raheem clocking dumb dollars and all the stupid shit.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah.
like announcing to the world they were selling dope.
Right.
You know, but it was a different. It bringing that stuff up to that comment. All those type of clothing lines, fashion lines, all that stuff impacted the culture too, 100%. But Fubu, we forgot Fubu. All this started with Fubu, by the way. If you just popped in. Hollow Vegeta said he came in one day and his son was listening to Woo. He almost cried. Well, that's a good thing. You know, and it's up to us, just like on this path in general, when we have those teaching moments. And as I've said to you guys, we're all teachers, but we must utilize the right moments that present to teach, right? We're not teachers to the point where we're trying to smother people, bombard them, and try to convert them to our way. But that's a teaching moment right there, right? That's a good opening to a dialogue. Not sure what the further discussion was after that, but I would have been interested. My thing would have been, hey, you know, see you listening to Woo. How'd that come about? That might have been a good conversation starter or a good teaching moment where you guys could have built. I'm sure you did. But that's good. And again, like we were talking about earlier, I think that's the disconnect with the old heads and the new heads is just a lack of understanding of the history of the culture. And I think the connection would be stronger. They would understand how we feel and we would understand better and appreciate them more. And I think just like anything in life, it's just a lack of disconnect and communication on the culture, right?
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. If I could interject real quick.
No, sure. Go ahead.
So in line with that, a couple of times I spoke about my youngest son. There is a exhibit that's going to be at 1520 Sedgwick for August 11th, which is the agreed upon 50th birthday of hip hop. And I was talking to my youngest about it, and he's like, oh yeah, I heard about that. So I'm like, what you know about that? And he's like, oh, Cool Herc. He's like, Cool Herc, 1520 Sedgwick. I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Just reaffirming what I already knew that he knows. You know what I'm saying? But according to Temple of Hip Hop and KRS, that event's happening on the 11th of August. There's an exhibit there. I believe it's like a minimal amount of money, like maybe $10 or something to get in, but you gotta email them to RSVP. And then the following day is supposed to be a free concert in the park with all, hip hop legends from across the board. And in contrast to whatever's going on at Yankee Stadium, sponsored by Live Nation, which is $60 to $200 a ticket or something like that. So just throwing it out there.
Yes, I remember you sent me the link. Maybe we should try to post that or put it up on one of the platforms like Instagram and Facebook, and just so people have access to it. Yeah, especially if you're in New York, definitely check that. I would definitely check that out. Because the history from what you described and what I saw on it, and with KRS behind it, it's going to be thorough.
Oh, no doubt.
It's going to be thorough. And we were mentioning Run DMC, which I thought was cool. I mentioned this on an older show. If you're ever, and that's close to my neck of the woods where I grew up, if you're ever in the Hollis, Queens area, they got a Run DMC museum there that's pretty, got a pretty good detailed history in there that Jam J and them put together. And I think we need more things like that, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. That's
because
part of the education piece.
that's part of that education piece, right? We need that history preserved, right? So when you got a museum or a display or something historical going on like that, I think that all preserves the history of the culture, right? So yeah. Mama Muerte says my 13-year-old son loves Mobb Deep, Biggie, and Tupac. Yeah, some of the pioneers, right? Yeah, I love Mobb Deep, man. All three of them. Probably was more into Mobb Deep. It's crazy, and I say this with all respect. I never was a huge Biggie fan. I know that might sound crazy.
Same here, bro.
I just got to be honest. I mean, I think I became more into his music after, unfortunately, he was killed. But I guess because I never really cared for Puff Daddy, I always
Right.
thought, in my opinion, never was really into the whole bad boy artist. I just thought, I don't know, there's just was certain energy about them I didn't really care for. Like
Right.
I didn't care for Mace, and I didn't care for any of that stuff. It just didn't resonate with me. Everybody has their likes and dislikes. So I think because I wasn't too much into it, but you go back and you study some of Biggie. I mean, the production on some of his beats was off the chain. And even when you listen to when you go back and when I really started thoroughly listening to it, I'll be honest with you though, when he was alive, I wasn't really too much into it at the time as opposed to what I was into at that moment. Even I'll be honest with you, even Tupac, I wasn't super into Tupac because back then there was still that East Coast West Coast separation thing going on. I'm not talking even just about the beef. I'm going back even way before that because I remember I talked about one time on a previous show. I mean, because back then hip hop was very geographical, right? East Coast and the Northeast had their sound. Wasn't really a full developed down south, but at that time, like Florida and the bass movement, they had their sound. And then it was the West Coast. Yeah, the Midwest, you did have a lot of artists that were in the Midwest, like 8 Ball and AMG and some other artists, but everybody was geographical at that time. So everybody had their own geographical location. And I can remember for years, that's all I really was into before things became a little more infused and mainstream. But I remember taking my first trip, and it was a culture shock, brother. Coming down to Miami in the mid to late 80s.
Oh yeah.
It was my first exposure to Miami bass music.
Yeah.
And we called it booty music because
Right.
it's part of the history now. And I'll go back just for historical sakes and I'll listen to it once in a while. But it's, again, when we put aside likes and dislikes, you look at what Luther Campbell did and Two Live Crew and the whole Miami bass movement. He's the father and the pioneer of a lot of this music that we're hearing now. He changed. He added a whole different element to it. Now, again, I'm saying geographically, if you noticed, every geographical location had its own sound. That's just facts. Like when you were listening to a song from down south, you knew it was a song from down south. When you were listening to a West Coast track, it was easy to identify. And when you were listening to something out of the Northeast, because of obviously the rhyme flow and the production of the music, which also is a telltale of what they were influenced by artistically, right? Because in order to come up with that sound, there was an influence there. But I remember first coming down to South Florida for the first time in the late 80s. I'm going to say 87, 88 probably. Early 88. And man, it was my first exposure to outside of what I thought hip hop was. I'm not going to lie. Like it was my first time not hearing music from New York rappers or rappers in the Northeast. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? And, at that time, it was just a culture shock. But again, it shows how vast the music is, right?
I went through the same thing, man. Drove to Jacksonville, and I think it was 88, 89. I was just like, my head spun around. I'm like, what the hell is this?
But
It's something totally different. Totally different.
I think up that way, if I'm not mistaken, from Orlando up to that area was Magic Mike. If I could be wrong. They had a dude called Magic Mike who was real. He was out of Orlando, and he was popular. From Central Florida on up, and Magic Mike and something it was called, which I got wind of them down in South Florida, but he was big in the central to the north part of Florida. So yeah, they had their own sound, man. They definitely had their own sound.
And to speak on the Biggie thing, I actually made, I believe it was 2 diss songs dissing Biggie back in the day.
Say it again.
And the boy, I made 2 diss songs against Biggie back in the day. The dude who's my producer at the time was like, "Yo, really?" I'm like, "That's how you feel?" I'm like, "Really?" Like, nah, I'm not. I wasn't on the hype at all. But like you said, I think a lot of that was attributed to Puffy because I really wasn't big on the locks either until later. Like right now, I look at Jada like Jada's freaking one of the gods. You know what I mean? But at the time, I just was turned off. Like Puffy really turned me off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in contrast, though, I did love Pac. Like that All Around the World song, I zoomed in on his verse on that, and then everything he did after that, I just wanted to hear. It was his energy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. His first 2 albums, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna front like I was heavily into it. I mean, I was very conscious and aware of him, and I did tap into some of his music, but again, I got to be honest, more so after he transitioned like Biggie is probably when I really started to study his music. I was I'm not going to lie to you, in my younger days, late teens, early 20s, late 20s, I was very, very close-minded to music outside of when it came to rap out of the Northeast, especially New York. It's just a lot of us were like that. But then as things started to expand, became a little different. I mean,
well,
it's just
so
the way it
speaking
was.
on that, how did you feel about NWA when you first heard?
Now it's crazy because of NWA being obviously that first album straight out of Compton. We'd probably have to say mainstream wise, they were the first pioneers of what we're calling gangster music, right? It's my first reaction to NWA. Love the production of the music, the beats. After a while, I'd get a little agitated with the same repetitive shit, with the I don't know. After a while, it just became overkill. I mean, I heard what the stuff that they were trying to communicate. I get, with police brutality and what was going on in the neighborhood and things they were exposing in a very, at that time, they weren't holding back. I mean, long story short, I'm not going to say I was really into NWA, and I'm not going to say I didn't really like it. Not saying I was pumping it when that first came out in '88, because I wasn't like pumping it all the time. It was one of those things you came across because it was out there and everybody was talking about it. But I got to keep it real. If we're going to be 100% honest, I just couldn't get with the Jerry curls, and I'm just going to be honest. Like, it was
right.
because we identified with the artist and the image of the artist. I'm going to be real. Like, to me, I couldn't really get with like that whole, and that was the thing. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they didn't have Jerry curls in New York in the early '80s, because there was a lot of Jerry. There was a lot
you
of
know
Jerry.
what? You know what they brought to mind when I saw them? I was like, fucking Ready for the World, bro. I was
Ready,
like,
there you go. I just couldn't get with that whole, the khakis and the flannel jackets. I know but that's the fashion out there.
Right.
I think it was a disconnect with their culture of hip hop at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Because then I always felt like, all right, we did Self-Destruction. They came out with All in the Same Gang,
Right.
And it was just like, which, don't get me wrong, was positive. But we know at that time West Coast hip hop was highly influenced by gang culture, right? Because Bloods, Crips, and things of that nature was heavily influencing the culture, and rightfully so. That's their environment. That's what they grew up in. So I think at that time, because how we grew up in the Northeast, and don't get it twisted. Yeah, we had gangs in the Northeast like the Latin Kings, etc. But a lot of that Blood Crip stuff didn't come till the 90s. They didn't come till later. I mean, True Bloods and Crips, and there's a debate about that. I don't want to get into that. But what I'm saying is, long story short, I just didn't really identify with that aspect. I just didn't connect with it. It felt so foreign to me, and it felt in opposition to my environment and what I grew up in. Like, it was just totally different. So I think that kind of turned me off. But I remember in the early 90s, there was a lot of West Coast artists like Souls of Mischief. I was heavily into them. The Alcoholics, even though they rapped about, Alcoholics were off the chain.
And the
Exhibit.
fucking beats.
Oh man, Alcoholics came out with some slamming beats. Exhibit was off the chain. Casual. I mean, so I did like a lot of Bay
Cypress
Area.
Hill.
Say who?
Cypress Hill.
Cypress Hill, yeah. I mean, so yeah, later, I think, because unfortunately, I think the early stages of West Coast hip hop got too affiliated with gang culture. But I think when that kind of start to expand out a little bit more, I think that's when I started to get into more West Coast artists. Phariside, they were off the chain. I used to love Phariside.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man,
yeah.
can't forget Phariside. So there's a lot of West Coast artists I really, and I probably started listening to more West Coast hip hop in the early 90s to mid 90s on. A lot of the early 80s. What was the two dudes that made that song "Fuck New York"? Rodney, well, not Rodney Owen. Was it cool? Joe? Oh man, was it two dudes that had Jerry curls? Oh man, can't think.
I know who you're talking about. I can't think of the name either.
It came out in the 80s. It's called "Fuck New York." That song pissed me the fuck off. I ain't gonna lie. So it was just, it was just
Tim Dog still up though. Tim Dog still up in New York.
Yeah. Now you talk about a group. Listen, man, you talk about a group. Speaking of Tim Dog, but you talk about one of the most hidden gems is the Ultramagnetic MCs, man. Critical Beatdown.
Ultramagnetic. Oh God.
Classic.
Stop, bro. You don't even, man. What?
Classic. Ultramagnetic. I mean, they was way ahead of their time. They had an abstract style of rhyming, but their beats, you talk about ridiculous. You can head nod through that whole fucking album.
Ridiculous.
And the way they incorporated the bass on their tracks, I used to crank that shit in my car, man. That was one of the things that rattled your trunk when you played Critical Beatdown. And keep in mind, that came out in 1988. And if you go listen to the production on that album, it was on some next level shit. It sounded futuristic for 88.
Yeah, it did.
It had that classic like banger feel to it, but it was futuristic in nature because the way they sampled and the way they incorporated the tracks.
Not even that though. Not even just that. Just the whole rhyme style and their delivery and everything was different. Like Kool Keith he was on some other, just some complete other shit, man.
Space Cadet shit.
Yeah.
They Said G had his
Said G, Said G and Kool Keith for sure. It was just like nobody was doing it like them.
Nah. And the Four Horsemen was a good album. The follow up after that, but for whatever reason, I thought they was going to take off. You know, but after the Four Horsemen, that was it. Nothing. I mean, I know a lot of them broke off and did some solo joints.
Yeah.
But it's a shame. They were one of my favorite groups at that time. So it's good talking about this because there was, I think at that time, when we go from the 80s into the 90s, there was just so much geographical I don't know if you want to call it stereotypes, but in a sense they are stereotypes, because I think people were just so locked into where they were geographically during them times. It was a little bit different. Where now everything's across the. I mean, think about it now. What artist really shouts out where they're from, right? It don't really happen like that.
Nah, not at all.
Right.
Not
Everybody just comes out. It's not, but back then everybody was shouting out where they were from, right? You knew where everybody artist was from. So it's a different time when we compare some of these artists. But again, I know this sparked it from the Puffy thing. I was never really into Bad Boy and all that shit. I'm sorry. I just always thought it was cornball.
Hated it.
And like to watch Mace and Puffy dance around and shit. This is something this shit just doesn't sit right with me, man. You know. And then anyway, that's a whole nother story.
Listen, I can't. It was genius what he did, the way he did it, the way he approached it. It was from a business standpoint, it was genius.
Genius.
I just can't stand the shit.
Oh yeah, respect him as a businessman, but please don't rap. Don't get
right. Exactly.
Dude, the album was whack that he put out, and he can't rap. Let's just keep it 100. His rhymes were cornball.
Right.
But from a business perspective, hey, you gotta respect him. I mean, come on, it's obvious. Man knows what he's doing with business. But I guess when you got that type of money and power, you can rap and be whack as hell. Ain't nobody gonna tell you whack.
No doubt.
But let's call it for what it is. It's trash. You know, it's trash. It is what it is. What do we got here? Hollow Vegeta says, yeah, one thing we should do, we talked about doing an underground show. He threw some artists out here, Brownsville, Ka. You haven't checked him out. I love Sky Zoo, Apollo Brown. Apollo Brown is another producer, and he does a lot of Sky Zoo's production. But Apollo Brown, check him out, man. He's put out some wicked shit. Now there's a group, and it's two white dudes, and Apollo Brown did all their production. And I love they haven't made shit in a while. There's a group called Ugly Heroes. If you haven't heard of them.
I know about Ugly Heroes.
Oh man, I love them.
They are dope. They
got 2 albums that Apollo Brown produced that came out. I'm gonna say it was like 2014. It could have been anywhere from 2013 to 16. I don't know what happened to them. I haven't heard much from them since. But Sky Zoo, I believe, made some cameos on one of them. But they were all connected. It was Sky Zoo, Ugly Heroes, Apollo Brown. But check them out. LZ's got Passport Rav, Raz Fresco. Check him out too. Cambada, Ransom, Kami. Yeah, he's throwing some good ones. I think that's definitely a show we should do on real underground hip hop.
Oh, for sure.
Because there's a lot of underground artists out there, and that's why they're underground, right? And they come into it knowing that's what they are, as far as how much exposure, unfortunately, they get or don't get. But again,
it's about the love, bro. That's the whole thing. That's what we're talking about, you know.
Well, but then we were
love
talking
and respect
about
for the art form.
But see, an underground artist can have a lot more financial success now because, again, what we were talking about, having these digital platforms now.
Yeah, right.
You know, YouTube channels and all these other platforms. See, an underground artist back then couldn't really make no money because he had to rely solely on the label and you know, things of that nature to promote him. Where now you can be an underground artist and have a lot more success than you were able to have back then. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of underground hip hop because I think that's where you now find a lot of this culture and creativity that we're talking about now. Cambada too. I mean, Cambada, he really gets into some occult stuff. If you haven't heard his music, and I know he's done some stuff with what you call it? God damn, drawing a blank. Dude that won the freestyle contest a couple of times. Can't think of his fucking name. Man, it'll come to me. But he's done some collaborations with him. I'm just drawing a blank right now. Mine's a little fuzzy. What else we got? We always had Trash. Seems a little more out front now. KPO. You know, Frisco used to play East to West. Yeah, now we talked about that on a past show. San Francisco has a hip hop scene too that nobody talked about. There's a rich history there, going back to the '80s, the Bay Area, you know, the whole nine. So there's a history there. We touched on it, but like I say, man, there's a lot of classic Bay artists that came out. Again, I got to bring up Souls of Mischief. I was a huge Souls of Mischief fan.
No doubt.
Yeah, they came out with some good shit back in the day. They were just down here and did a show, matter of fact, about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
They did a show. I couldn't go. Where was it at? It was somewhere in West Palm Beach. They're down here. They again, like we were talking about earlier. Here's another artist, old school groups. They touring. They still out here. But yeah, San Francisco has a rich history there too. Oh yeah, the boom boxes with the equalizer and the fucking 20D batteries. Yeah, man. You remember,
20D back, and it should have played for 2 hours.
batteries would get drained, especially if you're using the cheap shits like Eveready. Remember the
Oh, you can't do
Eveready?
that. You can't do that. That's
No.
only 15
Remember you were
minutes.
tight on money though.
Yeah.
I mean, you the Evereadys was cheap, but they were the 2-hour joints. You knew it was dying because the tape it would start to sound slow. She's like, "Oh shit, the batteries is dying." Yo, but what was the trick? We thought it helped a little bit. What you used to do with batteries when they were dead? Come on, this is how you know
What?
if you're real old school head.
Put
Where'd
them
you
in the
put the batteries?
put them in the freezer.
In the freezer. There you go.
Yeah,
Only old
yeah.
school heads know that shit.
Yo,
We
did you ever hear? You ever heard of a dummy battery?
Yeah, maybe I know it by something else. What do you mean when you say a dummy
It
battery?
was so basically it was shaped. It had the size and shape of a battery, but
Uh-huh.
without anything in the middle. And you basically
Oh
it was
yeah,
like a conductor, and you put it in place of batteries.
yeah,
So you need 6 batteries, and you put in 4 and 2 dummies, and it should have
yeah,
play.
yeah. That never worked too effectively though either.
No, because
Yeah,
you're draining 4 batteries now
you're
instead of
draining
6.
4
So,
batteries. Right. And that shit was heavy to carry.
oh
I told you
god,
guys a story on one of the YouTube shows. Only time I probably, and it really didn't affect me directly, but probably the only time I ever got stuck up or robbed my whole entire life growing up in New York. And I'm going back to shit. We were in like 10th grade. So we couldn't have been no more than, I'm going to say 15, 16 years old, somewhere around that age. And I'll never forget because back then it was wintertime. That I know, cold as fuck. I know we were all, and we didn't get robbed for our gooses. We all had gooses on, Panther collars, the whole nine. And I thought we was getting stuck up for our jewelry and our jackets and shit, to be honest with you. And I'll never forget this. We were walking on the street in New York called Franklin Avenue. We were coming from White Castle. We was headed to this house party. And in the wintertime, when we had these like, they weren't huge house parties, might have been 15, 20 people or so there. You know, we'd get like a keg of beer. We'd bring the boom box. Somebody would have some weed and shit, whatever. And somebody's house was available, be a basement party or a house party because parents wasn't there, whatever. So we would walk in there, and I never forget. We were walking up Franklin Avenue, and I never forget. We hear this car just like pull up right next to us. Bunch of dudes get on the floor, motherfucker. Everybody down. Now I ain't gonna lie. I was shit. I'm a young kid. I was like, what the fuck? I thought we was getting taken for all our shit. I didn't know what. And I'm like, we ain't got nothing on us, so there's nothing we could do. We get down on the floor. All they wanted was the boombox. And mind you, my friend George, who owned the boombox, had just bought it like 2 weeks ago down at the Coliseum in Jamaica. And I don't know how much he spent on it. I mean, back then it might have been $200-300. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's a lot of fucking money. And it was the one with the equalizer that lit up. You know what I'm talking about? When it had to do. I mean, no CDs was out then. It had the double tape deck, so you could not only could you record off the radio, but you could tape. Remember, we used to put one tape in.
Oh yeah, you dubbed the
you
other
used to
one.
record a tape. Yeah, you know, if your boy had a tape and you didn't want to spend the money, let me record that. You get a blank tape, and you put one on the left, and then you just record it on the other on the blank tape. So yeah, fuck the party up that whole night. The party was shot. We had to get some weak ass radio that my friend had at the house that the party we were going to. So we ain't have really I mean, we made the best of it, but yeah, terrible night. George was pissed off. You know, I thought they was taking us for our jewels, our jackets, because if you ever seen like in New York during them times, it was Sherlins or you had the Goose Downs. If you were riding the trains, it was normal to see a dude coming off the subway with no shoes on, just a t-shirt and some pants. Because back then, man, stick-up kids, whether they were going into projects, running trains, that's what they did, man. They took you when you got robbed for your sneakers. If you had a expensive jacket, jewelry, your money. I mean, stick-up kids took you for everything. But apparently that night, all they cared about was they just wanted that damn radio. And the thing was, let's be honest, we're walking down the street. It's nighttime. We're blasting this shit and fucking equalizers lit up. So you bringing attention to yourself. But you're kids. You don't know no better.
No doubt. No doubt.
But yeah, the D batteries, that was, man, god damn, that was a motherfucker back in the day. Yeah, it was tough. But thank God for the adapter that you'd have fold up on the inside. So when we went to house parties, we would plug it in.
You just plug it in, yeah.
Yeah, we would plug
yeah.
it in, so we didn't drain the batteries, man. But yeah, the good old boombox. That's a piece of hip hop culture that will always be a part of it. The boombox.
What kind of batteries? D, motherfucker, D.
D, oh yeah. From D right there with Radio Raheem, I can relate. D, motherfucker, D. Yeah, man. You had cats like, listen, man. Spike was showing you how you had cats like that were walking around in New York like that. That's no exaggeration.
No doubt.
You know, you had the Radio Raheem cats that was walking around with the boom boxes, man.
My first job, that's what I did, bro. We had a place downtown, man, called Funko Mart. They sold DJ equipment, they sold boom boxes, anything related to music. And I had my eye on this boom box, man, for the long. I got my first job, ran down there. It was probably $300, chromed out, EQ, all of that. I loved that thing, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, man. You never forget certain things like that, man. You just don't forget it. Like one thing that always stands out to me, I was mentioning the goose down jackets. The smell of that leather, man. I know it sounds crazy, but that smell, man. Like that clean, there was nothing like the clean smell of a new leather jacket. Real, I'm talking about, I mean, when them goose downs first came out, again, I'm going back to 1986, they was about $200. And again, that was a lot of money, man. And man, cats was getting robbed for them. The Sherlins were even more. Sherlins came out a little later in the early 90s. I watched dudes get robbed for them broad daylight. I mean, literally, cats was getting stuck up for them broad daylight. But then, man, I had the all black because I wanted the one. I was trying to find the exact one on the Raising Hell cover because that was when I first saw it. I said, I got to get me one of them jackets. But man, again, Coliseum on Jamaica Avenue found me an all black with a panther collar. The collar, man. And then when you put your cologne on and it get on the panther collar, oh man. And you be out in the cold in the wind and you walk in a room, man, the females would come flocking because that shit it just permeate all in the fucking room, man. You know, you had that on, but you remember the you had to have your sweatsuit on or your, you know.
Oh yeah. Your Adidas or your TI, your Fila.
TI, Fila, Adidas. Yeah, man.
Yo, do you remember the hats? I don't know, y'all might not have rocked them in New York, but in Philly we had the hats with with your astrology sign on it.
We had that too much.
Okay.
I don't recall. I'm not saying
that was a big thing down here, man. We
oh shit.
Yeah.
You know what that makes me think of? The Floaters song, Float On.
Yeah.
What's your name? Ralph Aquarius. Yo, I ain't gonna front that. The long version. Remember the Floaters Float On, the extended version? That's classic smashing music, boy. That's on a whole nother level of smashing.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you just keep that shit on replay because the long version was like what, 13, 14 minutes, just the one song.
Right.
Yeah, the Floaters Float On. That's I'm going back to early. But yeah, man, it's just all these things, man. Part of the history, part of the culture, and boomboxes are definitely part of it. Shit. LL Cool J on his radio album cover. That's a boombox.
Yeah.
You know,
and that wasn't that. Now that I think about it, that wasn't confined to area because they were doing boomboxes on the West Coast.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a historical, all over the place,
the board. For sure.
Hip-hop culture. It's crazy because bringing up LL, LL again, my neck of the woods, right over there, that part of Queens, and yeah, a lot of people hated him, man. A lot of people. It was a lot of hate, you know. And don't get me wrong, he was a little cocky motherfucker, so that didn't help. Matter of fact, if you go to 167th and Farmers, there's a bodega right there. Literally, you can go there to this day, right by Rochdale Village. And if you walk in there, it's owned by Dominicans. Right when you walk in, on inside of the glass, when you walk in to the right, you'll see that was somewhere he used to go all the time. when he was popular. The owner, they got pictures with him. It was like a regular place he used to frequent. But I remember, I mean, there was stories, a little history here. People may or may not know. There was back then, there were, like I said, there was a lot of hate, jealousy, and then the fact that he was a young teenager at the time. So I mean, people would try to jump him, rob him, take his shit. Now, if you go back, I mentioned this on an old show. There's an artist called T. La Rock, right? T. La Rock. And there used to be a big beef back in the day, and this was before LL was mainstream. A lot of people were saying that L like bit his style from T. La Rock. Now, you might, if you pull up T. La Rock, he used to wear the Kangol like L. There might be some influence there, but I don't really make LL Cool J's style synonymous. Because if you remember, L was probably one of the first battle diss rappers. Because remember, he had beef with, which I always thought Kool Moe Dee was whack. No disrespect. I know he's a pioneer, but I never cared for Kool Moe Dee. I just thought his rhymes were cornball. I mean, L basically taught him a new asshole.
He did.
I mean, he was beefing with Kool Moe Dee. He was beefing with T. La Rock, Ice-T, which
Ice-T, yeah.
Now the Cannabis LL, that was a little different. I know people are divided on that. Some say Cannabis took him out. Some say I don't know. I thought it was pretty even. I think Cannabis might have had some better individual verses. But I think what happened to at that time, personally, I think Cannabis wasn't at the stature of LL. And at that time, it's tough to come out and diss a rapper of that caliber when you don't really have that popularity level. It was tough.
Right.
In my opinion, I mean, Cannabis is still around doing his thing. He's putting out stuff. I think that kind of fucked up Cannabis's career, to be honest with you. Because remember, they were on 4 3 2 1 together with Meth and L on that album. That was a fat ass track. There's like 4 versions of it. So the beef stemmed from that, but I think it actually hurt Cannabis's career, and it's hard to come out against a rapper at that time. And I brought that up years ago, if you remember. There was a rapper called Antoinette back in the 80s, a female rapper. She was really good. She didn't really put out much, but she tried to come out dissing MC Light, and that's a mistake, man. You don't do that
with the Rakim style and flow, right?
Yeah, she came out with the song "Attitude," which was banging. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. And Antoinette had flow, but her career got tanked before it started.
Yeah.
Somebody told her to come out with a diss record, and that was a fucking mistake.
Right.
Because again, at that time, MC Light at that time, I mean, you had basically MC Light and Salt and Pepper. And I was never a huge Salt and Pepper fan. I mean, their second album is classic. It's got a lot of banging tracks. To me, Howie the Love Bug, I was never a huge fan of him. I mean, he birthed Kid and Play. I mean, the first Kid and Play album's classic, but outside of that, was never really big on Love Bug's production and was not a huge Salt and Pepper fan. But somebody told Antoinette wrong. She tried to come out and diss. At that time, in my opinion, MC Light was the rawest female MC out there. You couldn't fuck with her.
Right.
And when she came out with her album, man, I swear when I first heard MC Light, I thought it was a young boy.
I did too.
Paper Thin.
I thought like right off the gate, I thought that her and Giz was the same person.
Well, Gizmo's because they cousins, they family. And Gizmo on some tracks does sound like her.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, if you listen to Audio 2, put out two albums. Now again, they had their own style. They had I call them at that time, that was a very like Stetsasonic, that was a very Brooklyn type of emceeing and production. But I love Audio 2's albums. Their rhymes. But I said the same thing you said. There's some tracks where Gizmo sounded like Light. Yeah. Because they first cousins. They sound alike.
Yeah, initially that's what I thought. I thought they were the same person.
Yeah, me too. But when I first heard MC Light, Cram to Understand You and Paper Thin, I thought it was a dude. But when I listened to the lyrics, I said, wait a minute. this is a female rapping about a male.
Yeah, Paper Thin, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it topped me off. I'm like, something's not right. This can't be a dude because, but yeah, then when I saw him, but you know, MC Light was that classic, you know, female hip hop head, you know, the chick that wore the baggy jeans, you know, the bango earrings, she had the jewelry.
Right. Yeah.
That was your like
classic
80s, early
female hip hop.
90s
Yeah.
hip hop chick. Yeah, man.
And we saying it wrong. Milk is her cousin. Giz was the DJ.
Yeah, Gizmo was a DJ. Milk. I'm sorry. Yeah. Milk was the MC. Gizmo was the DJ. You're right. Audio too. Yeah, Milk sounds just like her because they first cousins. They almost have the same voice. And same thing. If you even listen to Top Billin', you hear a little bit of Light in there. If you listen to Top Billin', it sounds like Light at some point when you're listening to it. And what a simple beat that was. But my God, that everybody was playing that shit in '86. Backyard parties everywhere. We was blasting
classic.
that shit.
Classic.
Yeah. What else we got? Okay. Yeah. Howell forget. He's throwing out some more underground artists. That's probably something we got to tackle. All right. Definitely. That'll be a good show. Yeah. PE. I see Hollow Vegator's mentioning him again. Another him and his son. Yeah. I've talked about, I was a huge PE head growing up, man. Listen, I'm not embarrassed to say it. Yes, I went and got the shower clock that Flav had. I have to be honest and admit it. Caught flack for it. I used to wear that shit everywhere. Because that clock that Flavor wears, that's a shower clock, if you don't know what it is. So you could go into a department store. They sold them in department stores. And then I had the pendant with the PE with the arms folded and the lens of the what do they call that? The sight of a gun. Yeah, I had that big pendant. I had every PE shirt I can get my hands on. Oh yeah, PE'd out. I had the PE hat. Anytime PE performed and I could get to it, I was there. The first 3 albums. Now the first PE album goes under the radar. But there's a lot of songs on there that were banging. Now, obviously, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back and Fear of a Black Planet. To me, those 2 albums were the most impactful hip-hop albums, probably growing up as a young teenager, because it made me see things differently. Actually, I've mentioned this before in the past. You have to catch a quick glimpse of it. I mentioned this, I think, on an older show. Brother's Gonna Work It Out video was filmed out on Long Beach, Long Island in New York. I was actually there. They catch a really quick glimpse when the camera goes around. I was there with my boy Ern and Cam. And when we found they were filming, they let a gang of motherfuckers in there. So we were just one of the, extras in there. But that whole album, Fear of a Black, it made me angry as fuck, though. I ain't gonna lie. I say it made me angry because that was that militant era. But I can tell you this. It was Rakim, Public Enemy. These were the artists that gave me the motivation to explore the 5% Nation lessons, the 120. That's what inspired me because they were the first ones rapping about it, right? That's, I never forget seeing Rakim wearing the kufi with the talus on the side of it, right? That was my first exposure. It caught my attention. And on that second album, where they shot that album cover, that's a building right on Hempstead Turnpike in Uniondale, where they took that picture, right? So seeing the artist like right from around your way, literally, see PE, these are all like Long Island, Queens rappers. They all from the same pretty much area. So when we looked up to artists like Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, EPMD. They were huge. Biz Markie. Now, Biz Markie was originally from Brooklyn, but moved out to Long Island. But we used to run into Biz inside of White Castle all the time. They used to have snapping contests in there late at night, like after house parties and shit, or you were hanging out somewhere. So these were the dudes we looked up to because they were all from the area, and we were like, oh shit. They were like, like idol, like rock stars to us. Because like, oh shit, because these were like people, from your neighborhood and shit, you felt. Public Enemy was from the Roosevelt area, Freeport area, out in Nassau County. Fat Boys, they were from Rosedale, Queens, which is the first part of Queens when you're coming out of Nassau County, Long Island. And that's where I grew up, right on the border of Long Island and Queens. Like a stone throw away till you got in the city. You were right there on the outskirts. And it was good because you had access, to all the boroughs. More or less it was East New York, because you can get on the the Belt Parkway and you would be in East New York in a matter of minutes, But yeah, when you saw artists from around your area and they became big, man, you almost felt like back in the day you were a part of that shit, right?
Right.
That's how you felt, right? And I'm sure you can relate to that in Philly. Like, how many Philly artists from around your way made it, and it made you feel a certain way. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right, what else we got? Yeah, Will Knight had a good comment. It's pretty mind blowing when you realize that limitless potential is just a matter of vibration or how the vibration presents itself. That's true. Mika says she's in a Beethoven Moonlight Sonata mood. Interesting. Eagles, Witchy Women. That's a classic. Stacey Adams. My God. Remember the Stacey Adams shoes? Remember the black and white?
Yeah.
Oh man, Stacey Adams still making shoes, man.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's old school right there. Stacey Adams. I had one pair of them joint, very uncomfortable shoes. They don't make them really, in my opinion, for wide feet. They were always narrow. I could never wear them. They were uncomfortable. Yeah, the Stacey Adams. Yeah, I mean, there's so much things, man. Shit, we could be here all night. What else we got? Yeah, the baggy and the sagging. Yeah, and Holiday Gator says the shirts were so damn long. Sometimes, remember that? Yeah, the shirts were long and baggy, and sometimes you couldn't even see the belt line. Some dudes went extreme with it though. No, I mean I still got the. I mean I wouldn't go extreme baggy. It would be baggy, but like you'd see some dudes where the shirt was so baggy the shoulder line was starting at the bicep. You know what I mean? And it's like, dude, that shirt's just a little too big and baggy. I ain't go that extreme, but there was cats doing that. They were doing that shit. Yeah, those different reasons. Oh shit, Mika brings up go-go music, right?
Shit.
Yeah, in DC. That was a big movement in DC. They are responsible, and they incorporated when we were talking about funk. That go-go music is built on funk music, right? That whole. I remember Kid and Play tried to tap into the go-go movement and some of their albums, their first 2-3 albums. The go-go movement. DC
Salt and Pepper had one too. Yeah.
Yeah, Salt and Pepper. There was a few artists that tried to tap into. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't used on go-go. I didn't really care for it. Mm-hmm. It was fun if it was at a party. Once in a while, a go-go track would come on. And if the girls liked it, they dance. That's probably the only reason why I care for it, because the girls would get out there on the dance floor. You see a bunch of ass shaking or whatever. But other than that, I ain't going to front. But I remember my boy who used to, at that time when he was living in New York at the time. He used to take trips to DC all the time. And he would come back with DC with go-go mixtapes and shit. He would bring a lot of that shit back from DC. But yeah, go-go music. We forgot about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, that heavily influenced by funk.
Definitely.
Yep. What else we got? Yeah, Oliver Gator again throwing out some more underground artists, and again he's in alignment with the Puff shit. Yeah, I never cared for that. And then back then you had Puff, you had Jermaine Dupri. One thing I did agree with Suge Knight when he used to crack on Puff about rapping it.
All in the videos.
It was no
take on the music.
Hit that, take that. Bad boy. Shut the fuck up. That shit was just so corny to me, man. And it just to me it ruined the album. And then look, if you want to hear one of the corniest, wackest albums ever put out, go listen to that Soul album he put out. Terrible.
Yeah.
It's just a classic millionaire producer See, even Jermaine Dupri, I'm not gonna put all of it on. Jermaine Dupri can't rap either. Dude, stick to production, bro.
Right.
Stick to production. Look, respect you as a businessman, respect you as a producer, but let's call it for what it is. As an MC, it's straight garbage.
Yo, is it just me? Is it just me? But to me, Timbaland is a god. I never fucking understood what the fuck Timbaland and Magoo was about. Never understood it, bro.
Well, I didn't care for that style. Magoo.
Oh my god.
It's almost like they were just saying whatever randomly came to their head. I mean, that's how I took it. Like you were clear on what they were saying, but you didn't really understand.
But just Magoo's voice is so fucking irritating, man.
Yeah, it was annoying. Yeah, it was.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was. I said another one. Timbaland.
Like, what the fuck is the point?
Yo, look, Timbaland, respect him as a producer.
As a producer, yes.
Businessman, but dude, stay away from the mic.
He's a god as a producer, but stay away from the mic.
Stay away from the mic, bro.
And just bury Magoo, man. God damn.
You know what it reminds me of? A lot of these NBA basketball players that think they could rap. You know, it's the same thing. A lot of these producers, just because you make the music, don't mean you can rap the music, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, all those dudes, Timbaland, Jermaine Dupri, Puff Daddy. Well, I don't even know what he calls himself anymore.
All right.
Puff Daddy, Puffy Combs, Puffy this. Well, isn't it Brother Love or some shit now? Peace and Love or whatever the fuck he calls himself now. Maple Syrup. I don't know what the fuck he's calling himself. But yeah, it's just, some dudes just nah, don't get behind the mic, man. Leave the rapping.
Right.
I even thought that too. Like, you know who used to annoy me? I mean, she was fine as fuck, but I used to hate when Cinderella used to rap on the Salt and Pepper tracks.
Oh yeah, Cinderella. Yeah.
It's like, yo, stay behind the turntables.
Right.
She had no skills, man.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. All right, let's go through some more of these comments. I'm having a little fun with this. So, yeah, I really got into this is Logan Scott. I really got into Biggie in my early 30s, and Puffy used to annoy the shit out of me. Everybody says the same thing. Yeah, the dancing around, dude. What the fuck was that shit? Just like getting in front of. Yeah, it was annoying. Yeah, so everybody seems to be in agreement with that. You know, dude just needs to come out of the closet, dude. Call it for what it is. Come out the closet, bro.
Did you see that video floating around with him with a wig on? And it's one of his bodyguards put it out. His former bodyguards.
He putting that shit out. He trying to let everybody know. Come on, man. Just come out the closet. Just come out the closet. It is what it is, man. It is what I mean, and it's just disturbing stories that are surfacing over the years with Usher
no
and
doubt.
all types of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lord Scott says Mobb Deep. By the time I heard of them, I was in my mid-teens and loved them. Yeah, Mobb Deep, man. Just you talk about. If you had to tell me get a group, and they're from Queensbridge, if you had to tell me a group that captures the energy of what I like about New York hip hop, is Mobb Deep. It's Mobb Deep all the way. The beats, the rhyme flow, what they talking about. Oh man, Logan brings Big L. We did a whole show on that. Big L.
Oh yeah, Big
Listen,
L.
man. In my opinion, look, you can look this up. Look at some of the collaborations they did. Everybody will tell you from back at that time, before Jay-Z became popular, he bit his style from Big L. I agree with that a lot. Go live. If you know Big L, like really know his music, and you could pull up, I think it was a Stretch and Bobbito show. You could pull up when they were both on Stretch and Bobbito together and listen to some of Jay-Z's old music. He definitely was influenced by Big L. And I think he honestly would tell you that. Okay. I think that was a dude, if he wasn't taken from us so early, we said this on previous shows. I think Big L could have always wondered what he could have become if he wasn't taken out. Because, man, you talk about lyrical skills, butterflow.
Yeah.
That dude's voice almost was in unison with the beat. Like it was that his flow is that butter. I never heard a dude with such a natural, smooth flow. It's like his rhymes were tailor made for the beats.
Right.
But yeah, Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. If you've never heard that album, classic. Go check that out, man. Yeah, so always rest in peace to Big L.
No
Oh,
doubt. Big pun.
YZ. Shit. Now you bring
YZ.
5%, another one that was educated out of Jersey.
We covered him on a previous show. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He used to beef a lot with Poor Righteous Teachers. That was that whole it was Poor Righteous Teachers, King Son, YZ, all of them at that time had little beefs. But YZ was dropping a lot of jewels on his album.
No doubt.
Yeah, it's another artist out of Jersey. Nas, obviously, Nas. Now, I'll be honest with you. We did some breakdowns. I like a lot of Nas's older music. But it seems like he's trending back to that original. So I think he got a little, in my opinion, got a little commercial. I didn't care, but now it seems like he's starting to trend back to his roots. Kind of what you were saying earlier.
That King's Disease 2 and 3.
Yeah. King's Disease 2 and 3. Didn't care for 1. I was a little disappointed with 1. But Nas, one of the greatest MCs of all time, man.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hands down. Capone and Nori, I'll be honest with you, wasn't a huge Nori fan. Didn't care for the style, man. I actually like Capone a little bit better than I did Nori, because Nori, in my opinion, I mean, he has some classes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I didn't care for it at all. I think Nori sounded the same on every track to me.
I co-sign that. Yep.
It just wasn't huge on Nori. Now, another one that came out from that whole clique at that time, to one very underrated. I actually knew him personally from my time back in the day in the Answer Rule Law movement. He was known by 2 names, Tragedy and Intelligent Hoodlum.
No doubt.
Yeah, man, Tragedy. To me, out of that whole group that came out from that clique, he was the best out of all of them.
No doubt.
Yeah. You bring up Mace with Children of the Corn with Cameron, way better than that. Punk suave shit, I like to call it. I was never up on that punk suave music, and then what did he try to come back with a few years back? Then he went into gospel, and then he came back as some gangster rapper, Murder Mace or some shit. Am I right?
Yeah.
That shit was trash. See, you can't shift personas like that and think people are going to take you serious. Like, think about this shit for a minute. And that's what happened to, and rest in peace, he passed away too. That's what happened to Craig Mack. But at least I respect Craig Mack. Now, if you know the story of Craig Mack, he got involved with some bizarre Christian cult. If you read the story, but he was very sick. But one thing at least Craig Mack stayed, I think what happened now, don't get me wrong. Mace got fucked over. And one reason why Puff Daddy's so successful, if you really look at their history, he fucks and destroys everybody's career. When they're done, they're done.
They're done.
I mean, Total has got a lot of issues with him. They apparently got robbed of a lot of money. This seems to be a trend with a lot of past bad boy artists. And I feel Mace, his anger from the business side, he got screwed over. And I'm glad he called him out on it, right? He should have, right? Hopefully he gets what he deserves, regardless if you like his music or not. But dude, you can't go from, like you said, to Children of the Corn, and then you go to that punk suave smooth shit, and then you leave and you become a gospel rapper and you become a pastor, and then that's not working, and then you want to come back as Murder Mace. Come on, dude. That doesn't work, man. I don't think anybody took that serious. What else we got? Howard Gator talks about, I can never forget being 8 and my dad walking into the house. As Easy says, I grabbed the stupid bitch by the happy weave. He waked the fuck out. Yeah, Easy E was pretty raunchy. His first solo album. Again, definitely listen to the whole thing, because that came out not too Straight Outta Compton and Easy Soul joint were not that far apart. But again, it was just the Jerry curl. I couldn't get past the Jerry curl, man. Couldn't get past the Jerry. I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons I was traumatized. I was fucking one chick who had a Jerry curl, man. Fucked up my pillowcases.
Oh.
I ain't going front. She was fine as hell, though. I ain't gonna lie.
Of
Jerry
course.
Curls, it just ruined the whole package.
The activator did it for you,
The
or didn't
activator.
do it for you.
Listen, and if you ever gone to a hair salon with a chick that had a Jerry curl mistake, don't ever do it. That's all day. Oh my God. Went one time, never went again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You know what gravitated me towards NWA though was like you, I had that militant mind state. So it was like when I heard Straight Outta Compton and Fuck the Police, it was like, okay, it's this. I see where they coming from with this, you know.
but props to Dre. I mean, his beats were.
Oh, and the production was
All right, so
ridiculous.
let's say this though. Dre is probably the only producer / rapper that can actually get away with
Oh,
that shit.
yeah, no doubt, hands
Okay,
down.
so we forgot that. Let's put that in the
We
equation.
did.
Dre he is a rapper and a producer.
Right.
Legitimately. Right?
Yeah.
Respect. I mean, look, I ain't gonna front. When you go back and listen to his first 2 solo projects, classic. I mean, the beats on there. Now, I didn't really care in the 90s, Snoop liked some of the beats on there, but I think in the early 90s, Snoop was obviously his first couple albums were heavily influenced by funk and
Right.
Parliament and George Clinton. But man, Dre's first 2 solo albums, man, classic.
Yeah.
Classic. I could listen to that shit all day.
No doubt.
Again, probably the perfect example of a producer / rapper on a high level on both ends. All right. Big Pun, wrestling. Oh, yeah. Another one taken way too soon was probably at that time, was probably one of the top MCs out there in the game at that time. Another one. Exhibit. Loved Exhibit. Yeah. Exhibit's first 2 albums were classic. Again, he didn't sound like your traditional West Coast rapper. He had,
not at all.
To me, he kind of had an East Coast feel to him. But man, production on his first album's classic. A lot of great artists out of the West Coast, man, especially when the early 90s took a turn and it was different. It wasn't just a classic gangster LA West Coast rapper. But yeah, there was quite a few, man. I'm sure there's others that'll come to mind.
I liked as far as the females, Yo-Yo. I was feeling her.
Oh, Yo-Yo was classic, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yo-Yo was classic.
Who was the chick with the Afro puffs?
Lady of Rage.
Lady of Rage, yeah.
She's
loved
actually she just performed at the Essence Festival, so she's still around touring. What's some female West Coast rappers out from the LA or the Bay Area? Trying to think. There's one that's coming to my head. I can't think of her name. She used to there was a rapper out of King T. She used to rap with King T back in the day.
Okay.
In the late 80s. I can't think of her name though. Was it Boss? No, not Boss.
Boss was Detroit.
Boss was Detroit. Okay.
Yeah, but she was hot too.
Yeah, there was a few out of the West Coast, out of the LA Bay Area. It's not ringing a bell right now. I don't know why. But I'm sure somebody might type in. YZ. Let's see. Some people recently got exposed to them. Just if you haven't, I see Logan says never heard of him. Check it out. He was early 90s, very early 90s, 90, 91, 89, 90, 91. Doesn't have an extensive catalog, but check his music out. Yeah, Rodney. See, I did say Rodney O and Joe Cooley. That's what I thought it was. Thanks for looking that up, Hollow Brigade. Fuck New York, with Rodney O and Joe Cooley. Yeah. And if you pull up the picture of them 2 dudes with Jerry curls, it's whack as hell. If you listen to it, it sounds like they made the fucking beat with a Casio keyboard. Like it's terrible. So I thank you for validating that and look it up. Yeah, that goes back to that. I'm gonna say that was late 80s. And that's they didn't really do anything, but they were from LA, and that was during that time. See, people think the LA East Coast West Coast thing it didn't start with Tupac and Biggie. It was always there prior to that. Trust me. There was always that. To me, it really kicked in when NWA came out. That's when the late 80s going into the early 90s.
Right.
There was always that friction, in my opinion, between LA and New York. It was there. And that's why I brought up the Rodney O and Joe Cooley track, Fucking New York. Listen to it. It's so bad. That really started the beef. So that's why I brought it up. I'm trying to tell you it goes back several years prior to Tupac and Biggie. But that just, gave it more notoriety and publicity.
I remember when, if you remember when Ice Cube left NWA and started working with the Bomb Squad out of New York.
Yeah, well, remember, Ice Cube defected, remember?
Right.
So, now, to me, America's Most Wanted is the best Ice Cube album.
Oh, my God, without a doubt.
I am biased because I love the Shock Lee brothers. They're one of my...
Right, me too.
They did all PE's music.
Me too.
remember that track they did? It was PE, Ice Cube, Big Daddy Kane, Burn, Hollywood Burn.
Yeah.
On the America's Most Wanted album.
Yeah.
To me, now again, Ice Cube is another one. Was not a huge fan, but I'm a huge fan. I loved Ice Cube's flow over East Coast tracks.
Oh, loved it. Yeah.
So yes, when he defected for that short period and came over to the East Coast, he went back. But when the Shock Lee got their hands on the Shock Lee brothers.
Yeah. Them Bomb Squad tracks just fit him so.
They fit him so well, man. His style.
Definitely.
That's my favorite Cube album, America's Most Wanted. Classic.
Me too. Hands down.
So yeah, that's another one, man. Bring that up. Yep. Junior Mafia. Look, let me say this about Little Kim. Why she did what she did. She was beautiful before she even touched herself.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, how could you look at? She looks like fucking. Remember the horror Leprechaun? Remember the horror movie Leprechaun? I don't understand. Like, where did if I ever had a chance to talk to her, that would be the first thing I ask. If you look at her when she came out with Junior Mafia in 95, 96,
right?
She was beautiful. Would you even touch yourself for?
Right, exactly.
What did you go destroy yourself like that for? It was, I just don't get it, man. It blows my mind when I think about it. So there was obviously something going on in there mentally. But yeah, I fucked with some Little Kim and Junior Mafia. I actually, now I'll tell you what, when you go back to during that time, probably the two most prominent rappers here on the East Coast was Lil Kim and Foxy Brown. Now I like me some Foxy Brown, I ain't gonna lie. I fucked with all her music. The Firm, so you had the Firm, and then you had Junior Mafia. The Firm was kind of the the same concept. But I liked them as a group. Little Cease, depends on your opinion of them. But the Firm and Junior Mafia, I did dig it. I listened to. I was playing it when it was out. I ain't gonna front. But yeah, I did like old school Little Kim. I rocked with when she first came out. Definitely. What else we got? Yeah, Apollo Brown is nasty. If you haven't heard his production. Yeah, Hollow, he looked up Ugly Heroes. Ugly Heroes, I love the track. I love both of them.
No doubt.
Oh, shit. Mika said she used to dress like Foxy Brown. Oh, yeah. Let me stop. I say that real well back home where it came from underground. So you got to dig for the stuff. You can find it. And again, one of the beautiful things about the internet, we have access to so much more shit now. Underground back then literally was underground. You had to go underground to get it. It's not like it is today. You know, it got all these platforms where you have access to it now. The batteries in the freezer. That's what we did. And we were told if you put batteries in the freezer, it recharged them. I don't think the shit really worked. It may have gave them some life.
Or maybe slowed down the degradation process, maybe.
That I could say. But we didn't learn our lesson. We used them cheap fucking Evereadys because they were so goddamn cheap. You know, oh, the Everett, we go in the super. I ain't gonna lie. Then we used to go. Remember, we used to go in there and heist the batteries. You go in the
Oh
supermarket,
yeah.
steal them shits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Remember the diehards?
the diehards. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. That's the
Rayovacs.
Railvacs. Don't fuck with the Railvacs either, man. Yo,
Yeah,
the
you fucked up the
Railvacs are worse than
Rayovacs,
the
bro.
Eveready. Yeah, don't fuck with no fucking rail. Yeah, we fucked with them a few times, man. At least Eveready, you get a couple hours out of them. All right.
Exactly.
But Rayovacs, oh my God, you talk about a cheap ass battery. And that was in like all the cheap little corner stores and
Yeah, yeah.
fucking bodegas and or little discount gem stores. That was all over New York. But we used to go into the gem store. We used to steal the shit out the goddamn batteries, man. We used to get chased out of there. And, yeah,
That's
man.
funny.
Because after a while, man, that shit became expensive, man.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you gotta remember back,
cheap.
remember when you carried the boom box, like if you pulled out the cardboard and you were breakdancing.
Oh, no doubt.
And remember, what was the myth? If you set the boom box down on concrete, what was the myth?
It's gonna drain the batteries.
It's going to drain the battery. I don't know if there was truth to that, but that's what I was always told.
Yeah,
don't set the boom box directly on the concrete. It's going to drain the battery. I don't know where all this shit came from, but this is shit we were told.
Right.
So I think it was psychologically
urban folklore and shit.
Urban folklore. That's what it was. I'm just like, that's what I was told. Don't set it down on the concrete. I don't know if it was. What else we got? Yeah, Hollow Vegeta remembers the astrology sweaters. I know you mentioned the hats. I remember the sweaters, and they had the astrological. They were like the little button-up joints. I remember seeing a few of those. I just don't think that was real big by us. Now, I do. The astrological pendants. I do remember those. Cats would wear their astrological sign. I was never really big on that shit. But yeah, I mean, it was a thing, I guess, in certain areas. What else we got? T.I.'s son. Oh God. I'll be honest with you. I never was feeling T.I. Son Domani got a song name, man. Shit sound like 3000 of Kendrick wrote it. That shit. Oh, I'll check it out. Maybe I ain't heard it. I'll be honest with you. I can't understand what the fuck T.I. is saying. I mean, I can understand it's just it's country as fuck for me. That's the best way I can describe it. No disrespect.
If you haven't heard it, the Paperwork album's pretty good.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I'll be honest with you, was never a huge T.I. fan. I just could never get into the flow. Not my thing. What else we got? Yeah, I mean, I kind of, there's a lot of people that say that in the cannabis LO. That's why I say I think he did get the upper hand on him on several verses. I think his metaphors were more sharper in the way he came at him. But I think, unfortunately, when you're going up against popularity at that time, it's tough. I'm not saying L shit was weak. It wasn't, because L held his ground, because L is probably one of the first mainstream battle rappers, if there's such a thing as a mainstream battle rapper. But I think Cannabis had some fucking verses that chewed his ass up. I ain't gonna try. I ain't gonna front.
You just brought that brings me back to something I was gonna say. There's something out there that says that and I have to do my research on what song this is, but there's a song that has Biggie and L on it. And it said that Biggie didn't respect L because he looked at him as a biter. So when you talk about the who shot you thing, that came from him saying he was dissing L, saying old school, new school,
right?
Need to learn or something like that. And so L came back with I shot you. So it had nothing to do with Pac at all, according to this theory.
Right. I've heard that. Yeah, on L's Who Shot Your track. I mean, look, there's a lot of theories on L, a lot of stories to his background. Can't validate them all as true. That's why I brought up the Tila Rock thing.
Right.
There was some battles going back to St. Albans and those parts of Queens. There were battles in the park, Tila Rock and L. that are not obvious. Maybe somebody has rare footage or recordings of them, but not documented or recorded. But I do believe when you look, obviously it's normal for a rapper to be influenced by other artists.
Of course.
But back then it was considered biting, right?
Right.
That's unfortunately that's what it was. But if you go pull up T La Rock, somebody Google pull up a picture, the Kango, you look at it, you'd be like, wow,
Sweatsuit.
there's something there, right? There could be something there. I don't know. I think though, got to be honest, wasn't a huge T La Rock fan. See, I think the problem with like Kumo D, T La Rock, and the era and the time that I grew up, it was in that transition from that style to like, you know what I mean? So I came in on the tail end of that, right?
Right.
Because probably when I started listening to hip hop, 82, 83, I came really into it in the breakdance era, which was the early 80s, right. 82, 83, 84-ish.
Me too.
Right. And it was just the era was going out, and it was transitioning to a more, lyrical style. And that's why I don't think I could really, connect. Like I told you guys back in 92, I rented an apartment from Raheem, the Lady's Dream, who was one of the original members of Melly Mel and the Furious Five. Right. Now, there's some classic jams that were just classic. Like, I mean, they're from that, that's why I call it. That's just my little joking method. But you got to remember, and here's the crazy thing. We talk about hip hop fashion. They were dressing like George Palmer and the Funk.
Oh, yeah. But they admit that that's where they got it from.
That's where they got it from.
To them, that was superstar status to dress that way.
Thank you. You had Africa Bambaataa, the Zoo, all those cats, Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five, Grandmaster Cat, all those dudes were dressing like funk. They look like funk musicians, right? That was the original. See, this is what I'm saying. It's important to know the history. That was probably the origin of the pioneers of hip hop culture. So I was just a little baby kid. I mean, we're going back to very early, late 70s, early 80s, right? But again, my exposure to it started in the very early 80s early to mid 80s. And like I said, I came in on the breakdance movement. That's when it started. And it was going into the Run DMC era and beyond. It was more of a lyrical transition, right? And it's hard for me, like, to hear Rakim rap and then hear Kumo D, like, with that style. Like, I just was never a fan. It was just,
you know what? It's like you, the same thing was the early 80s for me. And like, you know what? Like, I learned about Kumo D's legacy. But same way, like, I don't know if you remember the song Suicide Busy B came out with.
Oh, Busy B. Never cared. Now, here's another one.
Didn't know who the fuck Busy B was. Right. Didn't know who Busy B was, but it just made me curious. Like, like, okay, well, what's this about? You know what I mean? And he was saying, like, I'm the god. I held the title, Same shit.
Yeah. Now, Suicide, that came out, I believe, in 85. And they played the shit out of that.
Yeah, they did.
The Rap Attack. My God. They played the shit out of that. Busy B, though. He was a little bit of a character, man. He had some funny ass songs too. He incorporated. I mean, again, was I a fan of the style? Not really, because the style was it was a little weird and corny, and but again, it's part of their history because it goes to show you how it has evolved and changed. And we're talking about an era where it was that, very old school style of the into the fucking, more of a lyrical style where hip hop had evolved in its lyricist. So it changed. And I think Kool Moe Dee was on the tail end of that. He came at the very end of that, Yep. Curtis Blow too, same thing. Like Curtis Blow, I never was a Curtis Blow fan.
Right.
We're playing basket. He was the master of the
Right.
Here's the craziest thing.
Yeah, sure.
Now, the only verse I ever liked, the only shit I could actually say I liked that Curtis Blow did is his part on the Crush Groove song. That's it. That's it. It's the only, and it was more so because the beat masked a weak ass rhyme, but it was okay.
Like I love
that.
If I Rule the World. That was
Yeah,
my favorite song.
If I Rule the World's classic. Then you got artists like Nas that sampled it later on.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, If I Rule the World was more of a neutral song. Like even the same thing with, who always had like, they were old school but had an R&B flavor to them, like Houdini, right?
Houdini, yeah.
When you listen to Houdini's music, he was like rhyming and singing simultaneously, both of them.
Right.
But they had a butter style. But it was weird. It's weird because Houdini, I never felt like was true hard, like hip hop. Right. They had like a smooth. I would say really Houdini is probably the pioneers of they're the real first New Jacks in hip hop. Because they had that back in the mid 80s, they had that New Jack swing feel to them. Because they had that R&B, flavor to them. But yeah, when you look at artists like Houdini, but yeah, Curtis Blow is another one. Never was really into. Yeah, If I Rule the World, well, that's a classic. Yeah,
right.
I agree with you on that. But goddamn, the shesh show, yeah, the shesh show, beats fresh show. I'm the number one. I'm the best show. Yeah, that shit.
Yeah,
that.
For sure. For
it's
sure.
Like okay, yeah, but again, it's we're having fun just talking shit about it, but it's part of the culture. Like like Rapper's Delight. It's a corny song. It's classic, but it's just a funny cornball song. You know what I mean? But it's gonna be but I hate when people say that's the first hip hop record. I hate when they say that because that's not true.
Right.
First
Rappers. I think that's the first quote unquote popular record where people were rapping that the adults of our generation paid attention to.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And that's why they looked at it as a fad, because now what are they rapping over? They're rapping over Good Times.
Good Times. Yeah.
Disco was huge back then. You know what I mean? So yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah.
How many, man, listen, man, there's some disco riffs. There's some disco riffs, man. You had groups like that. You had Donna Summer. I told you about a group, Brooklyn Dreams. Don't sleep on them. You had a disco movement, right? You had to be on low key though. You couldn't. You was considered a punk if you liked disco back in the day. It's just the way it was in my neighborhood. Now freestyle was a little different,
right?
Freestyle music like Stevie B, Johnny O, Expose, Lisa and Cult Jam. Shannon, let the music play. Classic,
right?
All that shit was banging in the clubs in the very early to mid 80s. Stevie B can't sing worth a lick of shit, but his music was just catchy.
Right.
Party Your Body. Those songs were so simpleton, but it got the girls on the dance floor. That's all we gave a fuck about.
No doubt.
It got the girls on the dance floor. I didn't care for that music, but the only time I ever listened to that music, if we was in a club, because outside of hip hop, that was considered club music back then. That was club music.
That was club music, yeah.
Right. Freestyle that was club music back then. Yeah. When you went to a club, that was the music they was playing in the clubs, 100%. And the girls love that shit, man. The girls would be out on the floor dancing that shit all night. What was the other one? Oh man, there was another popular freestyle. It was a white lady with long blonde hair. Can't think of her name, man. Drawing a blank.
Yeah, TKA was another one.
TKA was, yeah. I used to like TKA. Classic, man. That's freestyle. See, another, and freestyle was influenced by a lot of different genres too. When you listen to it.
Right.
You listen to it.
To me, it always reminded me of that Soul Sonic Force kind of sound. You know what I mean?
To me, speaking of that, Planet Patrol.
Planet Patrol. Yeah.
Planet Patrol. Play at your own risk.
Yep.
Listen to that whole album, man.
Yeah.
A whole nother level. Planet Patrol. One of the most classic freestyle albums you ever listened to.
For sure.
I still crank that shit to this day.
Yeah, no doubt.
Where do you think that beat came from? Doom, 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 doom.
Yep,
That's been sampled a billion times, man. And people still mix it into mixes today. You will still hear people use that for transition in clubs today. They still use that break. Okay. What else we got?
That's wild.
Yeah. Kid and Play House Party. Yeah, I mean, Kid and Play's first album, before they got into all that house party and very commercialized, I like their first album. Do This My Way. I love that track. Or Last Night
changed it all. Yeah.
Last Night Changed It All. I mean, that first album is classic hip hop. Outside of that, I'll be honest, wasn't huge on Kid and Play. Too much after that. But yeah, if you tell me if I had to dig into the crates and play a Kid and Play album, it would be the first album. Now remember, they come from they part of How We Love Bugs crew. Remember, they used to dance for Salt and Pepper before they were artists.
Right.
So they got put on that whole spectrum. But yeah. Oliver Gator says he wants the shower clock. I had it, bro. I gotta take responsibility. I walked around with a shower clock, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was that fanatical with PE. People thought I was fucking nuts. They thought I was crazy. So yeah, I did the shower clock, boy. When I say I was PE down, if you saw me from 88 to 92, I mean I toned it down 92 going into 93. But for that 2.5, 3 year period, boy, you saw me with a PE shirt. You saw me something with PE on it. It's just I wasn't going anywhere without representing PE. That's just how
I did the black medallion with the African symbols on it and shit.
You did that one, yeah. I didn't do that one. I did the one with the man and the site, but it had the African patch background. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then it had the man and the, you had the brother and the site. But yeah, man. But PE was, my God, that Takes a Nation of Millions album. That changed hip hop. That changed hip hop forever.
No doubt.
And I love Fear of a Black Planet. I love you talk about next level shock lead production, Fear of a Black Planet.
Mm-hmm.
They their beats were just very
ridiculous.
Like that Brother's Gonna Work It Out beat was like, I don't know. that shit used to put me in a whole nother headspace.
Uh-huh.
A whole nother headspace. Just the samples on there. Fight the Power. I mean, my God. When that would come on in the club, get out of the way.
Yeah.
When Fight the Power came on in the club and we were all in the club, my God. It was just man, we would go buck wild. When I say we would go shit crazy up in there, like we would just jump around and go wild. I mean, people would just back the fuck up because it used to get that intense in there when that would come on. And I remember we used to have to literally go to the DJ booth and tell them to play that. And they were hesitant. They used to be hesitant to throw that shit on because it'd get a little wild up there back in the day. What else we got? Logan Scott. This is a good question. Believe it or not. I like this question. Hold on. I missed a comment here by Mika. Grateful we had a boombox coming up, but it was my parents, and I was only using it when they weren't home. Yeah. My father had, remember the 8-tracks? My father had, oh my God. My father had the 8-track player. That didn't last too long, but yeah, I used to have to sneak and listen to the only tape I remember 8-track Earth, Wind, and Fire. My father, I just remember playing Earth, Wind, and Fire on the 8-track all the time. I don't know why. But Logan Scott says, when did tattoos become a popular thing in the culture? That's a good question. I don't think that comes till you didn't really see. I'm going to say maybe late 90s. I'm not saying, look, it's funny, an artist comes to mind named Apache, and I believe Apache, I remember, I could be wrong. He was out of that whole Jersey Latifah crew, Flavor Unit. You saw sporadically some artists here and there prior to then, but I'm going to say the late 90s going into the 2000s. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can fact check me on that. Look, I'm not saying, we're talking about when did it become prominent. All right, don't go digging. Oh, I found an artist in 88 and, no, I get that. I'm sure there was some that might have had them discreetly here and there. We just never noticed. But when did it become like a very noticeable, wide-scale thing? And I don't know, maybe you can correct me, Taj. I'm going to say late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in my opinion, I think it was more. I think the artists were more influenced by the sports figures, in that
I
regard.
do. Yeah. Yeah. But I think time frame, I'm going to say roughly around that period, because you're right. You didn't see definitely not the 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. That I don't recollect it a lot. Again, maybe we just wasn't paying attention. But I think if any artist did prior to that period, they just didn't have a lot of them, and we just didn't notice it like that. But I think it comes later in the last 15 to 20 years, maybe, roughly. Chief Keef. I see people throwing some other artists out here. Yeah, doing the butt would be considered in that go-go genre. EU was, I guess you can say EU technically is go-go music.
Yeah.
I believe, is EU from DC?
Yeah, I think they are.
They are from DC, yeah. So yeah, they're probably one of the most well-known go-go artists. Well, I wasn't a fan of that shit. Now, again, the girls loved it. I mean, that was a song.
DC, Virginia, yeah.
Oh, DC, but I'm saying they were playing that at the house parties. But that was that was a song we would throw on because it would get all the big butt freaks out on the floor. I mean, it was just, that's the only time.
Yeah, but that was prevalent down there, like the bass music was in Florida.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And go-go music was real big in the late 80s, early 90s for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, everybody's got their own preference. I wasn't huge on it. Was exposed to it here and there. More so, only time I ever listened to it was at a party. If somebody was cranking it at a party. Did I ever reach into my bag and play a go-go tape? No, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't. But you got to remember also geographically where you're raised is going to influence that. So if you're raised in the DC, Virginia, Maryland area, et cetera, that location, and you grew up around that time, I'm sure you're going to have a liking or influence to some degree by go-go music. It's just natural. It's just common sense, right? Hollow Vegeta says Tim and Magoo was straight 8 goof shit. I agree. I wasn't a fan. Just like you were saying, Taj, that shit was garbage. But yeah, Timbaland was a good producer, though. I must say, I did like some of his beats. Now, I'll be honest with you. What's your thoughts on Missy? Were you feeling her or you weren't?
Listen, man. Listen. I respect Missy in what she's accomplished.
Yeah.
I understand that she was an accomplished, artist as far as like behind the scenes and producing and all that. I hated her as an MC. I still don't like her to this day. I just can't. I can't stomach it. Oh, and that fucking hee how shit. I wanted to
I hated
fucking
that shit.
break my radio listening to that shit.
I just wanted to.
I hated that shit. Hated that shit.
It was corny. I ain't going front. And then that shit dressed up.
She can sing her ass off, but fuck, just sing, please. Don't fucking rap.
And then the abstract video trying to do the Buster thing in a big ass garbage bag. I hated that shit.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, this shit is not working. Who the fuck thought of this shit?
Yeah. I hated that shit.
Yeah. Wasn't a fan either. I knew you was gonna say that for some reason.
Bro.
Yeah, wasn't a fan. Never was a fan. But respect her, like you say, respect her for all she's accomplished. And look at, she's lost a lot of weight, man. I don't even recognize her now, man.
No, not at all.
She had 3 midgets.
Yeah, for real.
Mika says Baltimore club mixes are good too. Never been really exposed to them, so I can't really speak on that.
I can't either.
But yeah, her B-More's got some type of history too. I got a partner out of Baltimore, my brother Yoel. He actually makes mixes. Baltimore from head to toe. Represents B-More. He knows all about what I do know about Baltimore. I learned from him. Oh God. Oh no. Listen, Hollow Vegeta, somebody told you wrong. Shaq's album. Listen, all right, I gotta be honest with you. I gotta be honest with you. All right, now I'm not talking about the Shaq with Fushnikins because that shit was garbage. All right, Fushnikins wasn't huge on Fushnikins. like some of the beats, but after a while they became a little annoying to me. Especially the Latino cat. He was a little too eccentric for me. All right, now here's the problem I have with Shaq. Like Biological didn't ball. Like he had a few tracks. I think it's just it got hard over me. I just every time I see Shaq, it's like I see that imitation that Ari Spears does of him, and like I hear him when he raps. I don't know. It's just something like it never stuck with me. I'm not gonna say that Shaq is a terrible rapper.
Nah.
But I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to be. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say the album's hard. You be the judge of that. Or listen. I mean, it's so. To me, the best way, if I had to sum it up, say, well, just give me a summarization. I'm not gonna say it's terrible, but I don't really think it was all that. But everybody's gonna have their own opinion. I think when you have a critique on a movie or an album, your personal preference is gonna affect it.
Of course.
Didn't really care for it, to be honest. I don't know your thoughts, Taj.
Nah, I agree. I mean, it was maybe a couple tracks that I thought was decent, but I was not made a fan by that album. You know what I mean? Like I never wanted to hear more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. What else we got? Yeah, the Jay-Z Big L freestyle for sure, 100%. And I told you, listen to that freestyle they did up at Stretch and Barbito. I think that was in 90. I'm gonna say mid 90s. I think it was 95, if I'm not mistaken. And that was right before Jay came out with his first album. Right now, people always ask. I know now. Old Jay-Z, I love. First 4 albums, I'd probably say. First 4 albums, going into about 99, 2000. After that, you lose me. I'll be honest with you. Haven't been a huge fan after that. Yeah, I mean, there could be a difference of opinion on it. First 4 albums, classic. After that, you lost me. Now, where is he in the spectrum of things? As greatest of all time? I think that's a matter of preference. Yeah, he's up there. I prefer the older Jay-Z. But that freestyle with Stretch and Barbito with Big L was done right before his first album came out. But he definitely was influenced. You can see it.
I don't think that I think he was trying to, because when I can't help but go back to Jazzo, and that was he took Jazzo's style first,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of copy Big L style. So, maybe that was what he needed to ground himself or build on. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It's a matter of opinion. I see how OC got an album with a power. I got to check that out. I love OC, man. OC, my God. And OC don't sleep. In the last few years, he put out, I think it was 16 and 17. He put out 2 banging ass albums that went under the radar. But I didn't even know he just dropped something new. I got to check that out. I love OC. Royal Flush too, man. Shit. So yeah, I gotta check that out. I gotta pull that up. Then there was, hold on. And what's the name? Let's see if I can pull that up here real quick. All right, I'll look for it afterwards. But I definitely got to check that out. Gotta have tragedy on the players. Yeah, Craig G, if you look at before he passed, he hooked up with this. You could pull it up on YouTube. He pulled up some fanatical white dude out of, I forgot where he was out of. He's some fanatical sect of Christianity he got heavily involved in and completely devoted his time to it. Up until he got extremely ill and passed away from the disease he was suffering from. But yeah, it was if you look it up, it was a whack. They were pretty bizarre Christian cult. Yeah. There was another group, Classic. I think we talked about them one time, and they were dropping a lot of jewels on the album. And I wish they would have put out more work. And that was one of my favorite albums, the mid '90s. Cellar Dwellers, man. Pull that shit up. If you never heard the album, they only did one album. I wish they would have put more work out. But if you listen to the Cellar Dwellers album,
right,
that shit is fucking banging.
I
The
agree.
beats, I could listen to that shit all fucking day. Black Rob, yeah, man, Black Rob. First album, Pastor, yeah, rest in peace to Black Rob. I liked his style. Now he was probably one of the few bad boy artists I did like. Probably one of the only few. Now, Don't Sleep, his two albums, first two joints he did, he had skills. He had his own unique flow. He's another one whose flow went very harmoniously with his beats. He had a nice butter flow. Black Rob is another MC. I was banging Black Rob. I ain't gonna front. The pillow. Yeah, that Jerry curl juice will fuck your pillowcases up. Don't sleep. It'll fuck you up, man. I was traumatized by that shit. I couldn't get that shit out. And then the smell of activator is not pleasant, man. And then I researched later, years later, what's in that shit. You don't even want to know. They use placenta in that shit. You know what placenta is, right? So yeah, it's a shame, man. She was fine as fuck too, man. Fine. And what you'll do to overlook certain shit, right? Let me stop. What else we got? Yeah, Planet Asia. I fuck with Planet Asia. Heavily influenced by the Nation of Gods on Earth, 2 to 5% Nation. He openly raps about it. Like his flow. Love his production too. I definitely listen to Planet Asia. Mika said I wasn't really huge on Paul Wall, that whole area there. I'll be honest with you. Know who he is and know some. I wasn't huge on it. The Ghetto Boys. Now that Ghetto Boys album was a classic. That Bushwick Bill, who was from Bushwick, Brooklyn, moved to Houston. But that Willie D, Bushwick Bill, that Ghetto Boys album, with that it was classic. But again, I'm not gonna front like I was a huge Ghetto Boys fan. Yeah, Del the Funky Homo Sapien. He was abstract. He was different. I was playing some of his music, not huge, but Mr. Bob Dopolino. I remember that video. They was playing the shit out of that. Yeah, but that's another one. Rapping Forte. Okay. Yeah, Tim Dog. We mentioned him. Sam Snead. You guys throwing out some good ones here. Yeah, Gorilla Black did sound like Biggie. That's a good point. What else we got? It's Gorilla Black, not Gorilla. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why Lil Kim fucked herself up, man. Yeah, she fucked herself up. Yeah, Rock Marciano. I guess throwing out some good ones now. Current ones. What else we got? Jackie O. Yeah, that was another one. I couldn't think of the name. Yeah. The only problem, Logan Scott, I had with Ludacris, another one in my opinion, sound the same on every goddamn track. I don't know your thoughts on that, Taj, but that was just I just couldn't get past that. It didn't matter his flow and his cadence to me sounds the same on every damn song he ever put out. Yeah, The Dragon by Biz Markie. Pickin' Boog is hilarious. The Rapping Duke. Oh, you guys going way back now. Houdini, Kumo D, Chubb Rock, yeah. I was cracking me some Chuck Brock in the early mid-90s. Base Station. All right, I'm skimming through some of these. I think we're gonna get ready to wrap this up. Fushnikins. That wasn't huge on them. The problem is with, and I think at that time it was Fushnikins, Das Effects, that miggity, 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 shiggity, 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 iggity, biggity, big. The problem with that is when cats got locked into that style because it was hot for a minute, a couple years, they couldn't shake it. And I think, like, I look at Das Effects, which to me was way better than Fushnikins. But even when Das Effects came out with their later albums after Straight Up Suicide, they never could shake that. And the problem is that was only hot for a couple years. You remember that shit, Taja?
Yeah,
Early 90s.
I remember. Yeah, I think
And,
guys did it way better than Fuchsnicks, and
yeah,
they were able to drag the longevity out of it as long as they could. It wasn't really like you said. It just died. It just got played out.
yeah, it got played out. And when you relied on that, you couldn't shake it.
Right.
The iggity biggity biggity, shiggity miggity miggity. All right, it's just like, all right, after a while. That's like to me, like what's his name? I think that did him in too. What's the dude from Chicago? That's the one of the best freestyle rappers.
Twister.
Twister.
Yeah.
I was never really. To me, it's like you rapping so. Like I just was never. I was never impressed by it. I'm just going to be
Too
honest with you.
gimmicky. It's too gimmicky.
It's too gimmicky.
Right. Right.
It's like, all right, you can rap fast, but
Right.
it's
And like Buster could get away with it because Buster does other shit.
he does other
See,
shit.
that's your only fucking that's your one trick fucking horse. Like, what do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you're a
Like,
one trick pony. You're not gonna
yeah,
last.
right.
Yeah, you're not gonna last. Yeah, you hit it on the head, Hollow Forget It. It was corny, Shaq. That's a good way to describe it. It just was. Yeah. Like you're saying, even though you didn't listen, seems forced or corny. That's exactly how I would describe it. Very
Yeah.
forced and corny. He's trying to rap with the deep voice. Yeah, my biological didn't bother. It's just like, yeah. But again, when you have that type of popularity, you can get away with it. Now, see, if he wasn't Shaq at that time, at the height of his career, one of the most popular players in the NBA, could an unknown Shaq have put that shit out? No, you probably would never even heard of it. If you want
Probably.
that honest opinion, you never
Probably
even
right.
heard of it.
You're
More than
probably
likely,
right because there was nothing to it.
it was nothing to it. I mean, don't get me wrong. The production he hired some of the top producers.
Hmm.
See, bad production can mask some bad lyrical ability. Don't get me wrong. Vice versa.
Right.
I always thought, in my opinion, even sometimes, it's just my opinion, and I'm glad he enlisted, Primo to do some of his solo joints. I always felt like sometimes when I looked at some of, like, more so not the early Eric B years, but I think, like, when you look on Don't Sweat the Technique, I think some of the beats on there were banging, but I think the production kind of crucified that album on some of the tracks, because that's when I think Eric B had lost his touch. Uh, and then when he enlisted Primo,
Well, a lot of that shit Rakim did himself.
yeah, well, yeah, he did some of the producing himself, but I
Yeah.
also I heard on that last album, you could definitely hear a change in the quality of beats.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Don't Sweat the Technique. That was a bang. There was a couple of tracks on there that stand out there. Like, I thought Run for Cover could have been better. I just
Hmm.
thought the beat was poorly put together. I like the
Right.
sample he used, but it just was missing something. Like, when you're listening to it, like, it seemed like it was incomplete.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, I still like the album. Don't get me wrong, but again, I'm biased when it comes to Rakim.
Right.
I listen to Rakim rapping over the ice cream truck music. I mean,
Right. Right. True. But you're right. I think good production can mask bad lyrical ability and vice versa. You know.
yeah, Oliver Gator says Jay a radio dude. Yeah, I mean, LL Cool J is, I mean, old LL before LL was mainstream.
Something.
I mean, radio and Walking with the Black Panther. I mean, maybe 16 Shots to the Dome. I think after 16 Shots to the Dome came out, which was his third album, I didn't care if a mama said knock you out. That to me, that's when he went cornball. So when you get into that 95, 96 moving forward, I think that's when he went whack to me. That's just my opinion. But if you told me what is it I listen to L's music, it would have to be. Now I like 14 shots to the dome, pink cookies in a plastic bag, Jeep beats, because that was them deep Jeep beats and deep bass. So only 3 albums that's probably in my rotation with L again would be Radio, Walking with the Panther, and 16 Shots to the Dome. After that, I probably don't really listen to no L. Now, some like 4, 3, 2, 1, there's some individual joints I like that he put out after that, but not entire albums. But if you're saying to me, what albums would I play front to back from L, would be those first 3. That's it. And then after that, it's just selective tracks from certain things he did after that. But I do agree with you. I think he's a mainstream radio dude. I think you hit it on the head, 100%. Yeah, exactly. A dude died screaming, "Fuck you, do you remake his song?" That's a good point. Yeah, Cellar Dwellers. If anybody here listening or here, check them out if you've never heard them. Awesome. Fucking albums off the chain. I love it. Yes, placenta back then. Don't know. I mean, I don't know if is anybody still using activators. Does this shit still exist? I don't even know. But yes, back then there was placenta, which is all the gook that is in its baby batter, pretty much. When the baby comes out the womb, all the gook. Yeah, placentas. Now, something you guys may or may not know spiritually. It's an old spiritual tradition. I did it with both of my kids. You should always request the placenta and bury it yourself. I did that for both of my sons because a placenta can be used to work dark magic and sorcery to control an individual because it contains the very life force and essence of the individual. So I would put this out there for future women that have children. And believe me, they might look at you weird, but they have to give it to you. They give it to you in this plastic tub sealed. It's heavy as shit. You let them know before you deliver, you're requesting the placenta of the baby. It's your right. They have to give it to you. You tell them it's part of your religion and your spiritual practice. That's all. They might ask. That's all you have to say. After that, if you don't really have to give them any other reason after that. You should take the placenta of your child and bury it yourself. Okay? Very important. It's something I meant to tell people. I think I've touched on it in older classes, but let me put that out there. If you're a new woman and you're going to deliver, request that placenta and bury it yourself. Why? Because don't think a lot of those doctors delivering your babies don't know how to practice witchcraft and magic and sorcery. You got some high sorcerers up in there delivering babies. Trust me when I tell you. High profile, influential people. And they're in those positions for a reason. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist and I don't like to put crazy shit out there, but long story short, get the placenta of that child and bury it yourself. Okay. What else we got? Yeah, Scarface wasn't you. I'm not going to front. Wasn't a huge Scarface fan, but I respect him. So there was selective tracks I liked about Scarface, though. Yeah, Twist, Crisscross. Oh my gosh, it was whack as hell. I know one of them is fucked up now. Didn't one of them pass away, and the other one's like seriously was on drugs? I think one of them passed away, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean that was another gimmick at the time. Miggity, Mac. I mean, stop. All right, that song became fucking annoying to me because that was another one they played on the radio nonstop. That's all I used to hear. Jump. The fuck out of here with that shit. Jump the fuck over there with that shit. Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of no Crisscross, to be honest with you. To me, that song wasn't annoying as fuck. Miggity, Mac Daddy. Miggity, shut the fuck up. Fuck out of here. Yeah. I got your Miggity, Mac Daddy right here. Get the fuck out of here with that shit.
Yeah.
That shit was straight annoying. That song used to annoy the fuck out of me.
But as far as the 13 Shots to the Dome, to me that was his best album.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, no. The production on there is off the chain. Flow is off the chain. That was the last album before he went mainstream cornball. I agree with what Hollow Brigada said. He's a radio dude. 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
100%. Now later tracks that came out, like my Ultimate Strip Club. Every time I go to strip club, I make the DJ play it, doing it well. That's the strip club
Oh,
joint.
no doubt. Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, I mean, it's the first thing I do when I get a chance. I go up to the DJ booth, tip the DJ, play that song. It's the
Right.
best song to watch strippers dance to, man.
No doubt.
So he has some selective tracks after that for certain moments, but he became commercial. I ain't gonna front. You hit it on the head. Radio dude is the best way to describe him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I agree with that. First 3 albums though, classic. That's classic LL. That's hip hop LL.
Right.
But after that, yeah, I don't really fuck with him after that, to be honest with you. Yeah, Cars Drive By with the Booming System. That was on the was that on? Yeah, that was on that album, 16 Shots to the Dome. Or was it the one after that? I could be wrong.
I think it was I think that was it. I think that was it.
Yeah.
I think Booming System and what was the other one?
Backseat of My Jeep is classic.
Yeah, that was 13 Shots to the Dome too. Yeah.
That beat is. Ooh.
Yeah, that shit's ridiculous.
That bass, the way that bass.
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
See, that was what we used to call Jeep.
Was 13? It was 14 Shots to the Dome is what it was called. Yeah.
16 Shots to the Dome. Or 14. I'm
16?
sorry.
I think it was 14. Yeah. 14 shots to the because it's 14 songs on there. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a matter. Now, when the Jeep beats, now a good solo joint, if you like deep bass and deep, like them Jeep beats that was popular at that time, early to mid 90s, check out Terminator X's so Valley of the Jeep Beats. That's a classic too.
I think I did hear that before. Yeah.
Terminator X and the Valley of the Jeep.
Yeah, I remember
Beats.
that.
Chuck's on there.
Yeah.
What's her name is on there too? God damn, Sister Soldier got a banging track on there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some local artists that he put out on there too. But the production on that album is off the chain. Terminator X and Valley of the Jeep Beats. the Shock Lee brothers did some stuff on there too.
Mm-hmm.
Bismarcky, Das Effect, yeah. Red and Meth, yeah. Redman's first couple albums. But I like Redman. He's funny. He's got one he did about a year ago. It's funny as hell. He's a character too, but pull up the video. I'll slap the shit out of you.
Slap the shit out you. Yeah.
That video had me in tears, man.
Hilarious. Oh my god.
Oh my god. If you guys haven't seen that, it came out about a year ago, I think.
About a year ago, year and a half. Yeah.
It's called I'll Slap the Shit Out of You. And literally in the video, he's slapping the shit out of people. It's hilarious, man.
Too funny.
Yeah, jump. Fuck that jump shit. That shit was trash. Yeah, 100. Yeah, doing it well, man. My God, strip club song for me. Anytime I go, I gotta hear that shit. That is just, my God, off the fucking chain. Probably my favorite L song because of that. Not because of L, but it's just suitable, man. And if you ever, and I'm sure if you've ever been fortunate, watch them go to that. That's the jam. All right, looks like we at the end. I think we've been on for a while, probably longer than I thought we would.
Yeah, been on.
Like the Mickey Mouse Club, it's time for us to say goodbye, my friends.
Hey, B, did you nail down dates for the conference yet?
Yes. All right. So definitely it's looking like, and I'm going to confirm. All right. So with my son's travel hockey schedule, we are playing the last weekend of October, but I'm trying to find out if it's local, then it doesn't affect it. I want to try to keep it the last week in October, but I'm leaning towards the week before that, the third week in October, we're not playing. So I think I'm going to make that decision in the next couple of days. Okay. And just probably aim for that if I can't get an official answer of where we're playing. But the full schedule, I'm trying to be a little patient because that full schedule is supposed to be coming out any day now. Okay. So I should have a definitive answer very soon. It's definitely the third or the fourth week in October. I do know that. The third week for sure is wide open. So if I can't get clarity on that fourth week, then it's going to be the third week is what I'm trying to say. All right. But I'll definitely get that. And then once that's set in stone, I'll put the exact dates on the ticker and I'll promote it all over the channels and we'll get that rolling.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. Other than that, guys, don't forget to check out the Primordial Chaos Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Encourage you to join Tier 3. Gives you access to the 3 monthly classes I do on there, the rituals. If you need to contact me for a reading or consultation, you see the information there on the bottom of the screen. Reach out to me. Be more than happy to set something up. Now, I just want to put out there, we'll be leaving next Tuesday. It's going to be hard for me to really do anything for most of next week because I will be traveling away on the road. My son is playing on a Canadian team. Yes. A team called Atlantic Canada. There's only him and one other American kid on the team. And they're going to be playing at a very big tournament in Tampa. This team's coming from Montreal, and he will eventually be going over there to play, believe it or not, at 9 going on 10. So this thing is escalating. It's a lot of time for me, and it's growing. And I'm happy for him because he's putting a lot of time and work. Again, for a kid his age, I'm impressed with his discipline. Not just forget the athletic stuff, which is great, but I'm more impressed and happy of how much discipline and consistency he got, and the maturity level of him mentally is more impressive to me. So he made this Canadian team. It's a Canadian prospect team. He just missed the Montreal Cup because they added him after they played at the Montreal Cup in Canada. Now they're coming over here in the States to play in a big Sunshine Cup. It's one of the biggest tournaments here in the United States. So he's going to be playing in that next week. So I'll be in Tampa. Yeah, man. I'll be in Tampa for like 4 or 5 days next week. It's a big tournament, 4 or 5 day thing, and then I'll be back. But once I get some more clarity on the dates, we'll get the conference all lined up. We'll get it situated. I'm on it. Ready working with Sister Sophia, the venue. We've already locked that down. Like I said, she's just waiting on me to give her a date so she can draw up the contract, and then I'll sign it like I've done the past 2 years, pay it. And but she said both weekends are open, so I made sure I check with her early every year. This will be the 3rd year we'll do it there, and it's a great place, and she's been so accommodating, and it's a perfect location. So we've been blessed to have it set up for us, and she enjoys us coming because she knows we take care of the facility, and she opens the doors for us. It's great. But yeah, so I'm trying to work all these things because, like I said, the little man's hockey's taking off. I didn't think it would. I'll be honest with you. I thought I'd have a very mild summer. I was sadly mistaken. Summer hockey is just as big as the travel season, and because of things that have transpired from him at the end of last year and this year, he's been invited to play and try out for teams. He's getting ready to try out August 12th. I got to take him to the west coast of Florida. He's trying out for a team. You guys can Google Florida Alliance. They're a junior hockey team, which transitions into high-level hockey when they become teens, because in hockey, they really start looking at you when you're like 14 years old. That's when they really start taking hard looks. And technically, he's going to be 10 in a couple of months. So, yeah, it's escalated. So we'll roll with it. We'll see where it goes. As long as he has the passion and the drive to do it, I support him. But this man loves him some goddamn hockey, man. I mean,
beautiful.
He loves it, bro. He's skating 4 or 5 days a week. It's crazy.
Nice.
That's where I'm at, 4 or 5 days a week. I was there today. I was there yesterday. I'll be there tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, he's doing a skills camp, and it's run by Dallas Stars NHL coaches. They travel, and they only do this once a year here. So he's going to be doing that. It's a 4-day camp that starts tomorrow. Power skating, skills, and off-ice training. So now he's 9. They're going to be doing like all these different types of exercises. You guys, it's crazy. It's off-ice training to increase your skill, your agility, your balance, your strength. So they're going to be all doing all types of drills. It's not just on ice, it's off-ice training. So, they start that at an early age. So to try to get his balance and his skill and all that in order. Okay. So, hey, as long as he loves it, I support him. I wasn't fortunate to have that support growing up. My parents had to work all the time. But, yeah, I'm going to take some pictures of when we do the Atlantic Canada team. I'll have some pictures. I'm going to post them And he just played out at a Southeast Elite tournament this past Sunday. I was on the west coast of Florida. They lost in overtime in the championship game. He scored one goal in the semis, but he played his ass off, man. It was tough, though. It was physical. It was tough. Today, I want to kid you not, true story today, but he was burnt. So today, kid you not, 9 years old, he was doing drills up against a 16-year-old kid today.
Oh, wow. That's
kid
huge.
was twice his size, almost twice his age, and he hung. Don't get me wrong, the kid burnt him a couple of times, which is natural. But for the most part, in the drills, he got the better end of him. He was burnt, when I tell you he was gassed afterwards, though, because imagine a 16-year-old kid putting the body on the boards on a 9-year-old kid. Just picture it.
Right.
But one thing, he's fearless. He has no fear. He'll get in there. He don't care how big you are, how small you are.
Wow.
And he doesn't take it easy on small dudes either. There's no mercy.
Hey, that's how you got to play. That's how you got to play.
Good. All right, listen, man. You guys enjoy the rest of your week. Taja, we'll link up later in the month.
Real quick, for anybody that was on YouTube, check the archives. If you like the show, check out the archives on Facebook.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, just so you guys know, when you see me post, I do put an announcement and a post for the show. What we do is, the reason why, again, we usually just do it and stream it on Facebook and Instagram because we could play music there. The problem is when we first started doing it here, for those that may or may not know, YouTube is very strict with their copyright. Even if you put captions, I don't own this music, this and that, it still sometimes doesn't help. So we try to, when we play music, we usually do have a little more fun with it because we like to play music, we review albums. So I wanted to kind of come on Facebook, YouTube tonight to kind of maybe promote it a little more. So hopefully you guys pay attention. And the next show we do, when we live stream it on, on the Facebook and Instagram, come over there so we can play some music. And a lot of stuff you're talking about, what we like to do is we pull it up and we play snippets of it. We review music. It's fun. It's just I don't want to do it here because then you got to worry about copyright strikes and all this political shit with YouTube. So that's why we didn't play no music here. I told when we were live earlier, I said, Taj, let's go over to YouTube since we just kind of building tonight and we ain't going to really be playing no music. Let's kind of go over here and give this a little exposure. So, yeah, join us next time so we can play some music. Just stay posted on the Instagram and the Facebook. And I even posted here in the YouTube community when we do it. So hopefully you guys are getting the notifications and we see you on the next show. All right. Other than that, Taja, I'll get with you and we'll set up something for next month.
All right, bro.
We'll try to stay as consistent as we can with doing this. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, man. Infernal blessings to all. I will probably be on tomorrow doing that book review. I want to get that in before I leave tomorrow or Friday. I'll be doing the Lilith book review by Asenath Mason. But anyway, you'll see a notification for that. All right. All right. Infernal blessings.